Chapter 1719. The Goddess of Compassion's voice was very loud. It was immediately heard by Han Qi, who was on the stage. When the Moon Empress heard the Goddess of Compassion's words, she immediately snorted. She said in a deep voice, "Concubine Lien, the younger generation of our two major federations are having a showdown. Don't think that you're the only one who can feel the strength of the attack." The Goddess of Compassion pursed her lips. Knowing that she was in the wrong, the Goddess of Compassion did not argue with the Moon Empress. She was just surprised to see Black brandishing the pure white holy sword. One must know that the strength of an attack was not the most important thing. In a battle between experts, the realm of an attack was more important. The attack of a peak myth Tu Fei had the aura of a creation seed. It was really unusual. This attack with the aura of the world collided with the myth Tu attack. That aura of the world allowed her attack to gain the upper hand in the collision. After Black unleashed this attack, the sky turned dark. The Goddess of Compassion's gaze no longer fell on Han Qi. In the Goddess of Compassion's eyes, Han Qi was basically equivalent to a dead person. The Goddess of Compassion could not be bothered to put any attention on a dead person. The Goddess of Compassion's words seemed to be a reminder to Han Qi. The Goddess of Compassion's words were actually a reminder to Han Qi. The Goddess of Compassion had revealed the strength of Black's attack. If Han Qi wanted to fight against it, there was only one way. That was to sacrifice. Only by performing a sacrifice would Han Qi have a chance of blocking this attack. Otherwise, only death would await him. With that thought, Han Qi gritted his teeth. He looked at Black, who was holding the pure white holy sword, with grief and indignation. His eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. Black had just used the Bright Snake's ability, Bright Snake Divine. Thinking about it, he should have a certain understanding of the effects of Bright Snake Divine. However, through the sacred source life form's oath around the snake ring, he had absorbed all the main phase strength into his body. The strength that he had displayed was far from what the Bright Snake's main body could compare to when it used Bright Snake Divine. He had fused with the Snake Bone Fear Ghost. His physique was already so strong that it was shocking. If Han Qi had originally absorbed the power of the Bright Snake and the Sanskrit Guanyin snake, it would have been difficult. Now, with the strength of Han Qi's physical body, he could easily control these two forces to fight. Han Qi planned to go all out and fight for a sliver of a chance to survive. According to the Bright Snake Divine ability, he wanted the Bright Snake of the floating world to reach its peak state. He also needed to sacrifice himself. That was the only way for the Bright Serpent of the floating world to make another breakthrough after breaking through a grade. It could be said that once this skill was used, no matter what the final outcome was, he and the Yukio Di Mingshi would definitely die. However, the Sanskrit Guanyin snake's skill, Feathered Serpent God. It could allow the Sanskrit Guanyin snake to burn its own bloodline and sacrifice its own body. Protect a target. It didn't matter what kind of sacrifice the target was making. The final result of the sacrifice was borne by the Sanskrit Guanyin snake. Right now, Han Qi planned to absorb the Sanskrit Guanyin snake to keep himself alive. As long as he could win this general execution battle. Even if he had truly become a cripple, he had still protected the glory of the Freedom Federation. At that time, he would definitely receive preferential treatment. In fact, the Majesties might even think of a way to recover themselves. At the thought of this, Han Qi, who had clearly chosen to abandon his two snake species phase, suddenly changed his mind. She looked at the Yukio Di Ming snake and the Sanskrit Guanyin snake affectionately. Immediately after, the sacred source life form's oath surrounded Snake Ring's effect, Snake's love, activated. The power of the Sanskrit Guanyin serpent and the Yukio earthly bright serpent surged into the body of the devilized Han Qi. At the same time, the Yukio land snake used its bright snake connection skill. Han Qi also sacrificed himself. But under the protection of the Sanskrit Guanyin snake's skill, Feathered Serpent God. Han Qi, who had sacrificed his physical body, was still standing on the back of the bright snake of the world unscathed. Both the motionless earth serpent and the Sanskrit Guanyin serpent hissed in pain. The bodies of the Sanskrit Guanyin snake and the Yukio earth bright snake were disappearing bit by bit. The two snake phase souls were also constantly dissipating under the burning. In the end, only Han Chi himself was left on Han Chi's side. The two huge snake fays had already disappeared. Lin Yuan was aware of this situation. It should be the snake demon that had possessed Han Chi. It had a special ability. Otherwise, even if the motionless earth serpent and the Sanskrit guanyin snake sacrificed themselves, in a short period of time, their physical bodies would not perish so thoroughly. Han Chi raised the Class 5 treasure artifact, the demon lizard Fong Blade. It merely swung forward. Those wild snakes that were burning with flames were all killed by Han Chi's attack. These wild snakes' vitality and spiritual power were quickly replenished into Han Chi's body through the treasure artifact, the demon lizard Fong Blade. At that moment, 13 carriages suddenly flew out of Lin Yuan's pure white sacred sword. After these 13 carriages flew out of the pure white sacred sword, they kept galloping in the sky. Unbeknownst to them, 13 Valkyries' bodies formed by holy light suddenly appeared on the carriage. These Valkyries wore armor and had cloaks that fluttered behind them for nearly 100 meters. As the carriages ran around, they suddenly pulled out the sword at their waist. In an instant, a rain of light sprinkled from the sky. Lin Yuan raised the sacred sword and used his unparalleled movement technique to quickly approach Han Chi. Han Chi also twisted the 5 or 6 snake tails that were intertwined behind it. Like an arrow that had left the bow, it attacked Lin Yuan. When it got close, it was about to engage in close combat. Han Chi's grayish-black vertical pupils suddenly expanded. It directly burst the corners of Han Chi's eyes. It caused Han Chi's originally jujube-sized eyes to suddenly become the size of eggs. The black whites of his eyes were stained with blood. It carried a hint of malevolence and coquettishness. Han Chi's vertical pupils, which had been enlarged by 4 times, seemed to have turned into a beautiful snake that was constantly twisting its body and seducing Lin Yuan. This was the unique charm aura of a devil. It was enough to lead a strong-willed person to fall into the bottomless hell. They would become a chess piece that the devil had conquered and played with in the palm of his hand. Han Chi used the snake devil's impurity power to try his best to seduce it. It indeed caused Lin Yuan's mind to tremble slightly, even though Lin Yuan's mind was already extremely firm. However, Han Chi's charm and seduction made Morbius spontaneously use its passive ability, Calm Mind. As Morbius' strength continued to increase. At that moment, Morbius had become a Gold X/Fantasy V Fae. Through Calm Mind, Lin Yuan could be immune to most negative effects. It had to be known that when Morbius was Silver X/Fantasy V, this would allow him to remain conscious when the strange plant seed entered his body. Han Chi originally thought that Black would be under his control. In the worst-case scenario, Black's sword-swinging speed would slow down. However, Han Chi was wrong. 7017K. Chapter 1720. Not only was Black not controlled by him, but it did not even slow down. He used the pure white sword in his hand to clash with his Class 5 treasure lizard Snake Blade. Han Chi staked everything on one throw. Through the sacred source life form, Oath encircling Snake Ring, Black had absorbed his 2 snake fays. He had also used the Snake Devil's ability to absorb the bodies of his 2 fays. Subsequently, he had increased his physical strength and strength. Now, a casual attack from Han Chi had the might of a pinnacle myth 2 Fey. The strength of his physical body was equivalent to the sum of a middle-rank abyss devil, the floating earth snake, and the Sanskrit guanyin snake. Han Chi thought that after the clash with Black Sword, he would have the upper hand. He did not expect that Black Sword was not as simple as he had imagined. After the first clash, Han Chi brandished his saber 3 times. He struck the sacred sword in Black's hand 3 times. The attacks forced Black to retreat repeatedly. However, Han Chi had not yet enjoyed the feeling of having the upper hand. Out of the 13 Valkyries in the sky, 4 of them suddenly flew down. They pulled out their long swords and slashed at themselves. Han Chi's sacred source life form and the middle-rank abyss devil snake bone fear ghost were all dark-type existences. The light attribute had a strong restraining effect on him. Han Chi realized that even if he used the demon lizard snake blade to slice these 4 Valkyries into pieces, before the light attribute energy completely dissipated, The light elements would continue to condense into the Valkyrie's appearances and attack him. Han Chi calculated that he had to slice the Valkyries in half 3 times before the Valkyries would dissipate. Han Chi calculated that the 4 Valkyries that flew down should be because he had clashed with Black's sword 4 times. It was probably because he had touched the sword in Black's hand 4 times. Back then, if he had slashed 13 times in a row, he was afraid that he would be attacked by the 13 Valkyries now. At that moment, Han Chi saw Black coming up to meet him. Han Chi wanted to use his combat skills to prevent the demon lizard tooth blade from colliding with Black's pure white sacred sword. However, Black seemed to see through his actions. Every strike landed squarely on his demon lizard tooth blade. The Valkyries circling in the sky all flew down. The arena seemed to have become a training ground for the 13 Valkyries of light. After several collisions, Lin Yuan, who had retreated to the back, realized that his hands were shaking. It was very difficult to hold the holy sword in his hand. If he hadn't been using the lily to heal his arm. After these few clashes with Han Chi, Lin Yuan's bones would probably shatter into dust. Lin Yuan knew that unless he executed more sword skills, he would not be able to defeat Qin Feng. Otherwise, if they fought head-on, they would definitely not be Han Chi's match. There was a time limit for Han Chi to fuse with the devil and increase his strength through the bright snake divine connection. Every minute and every second was exceptionally precious to Han Chi. And now, Han Chi was being held up by this sword technique of his, the Martial God's Protection Strike. Martial God's Protection Strike was a defensive sword technique. In battle, every time he was attacked by an enemy, he would receive help from the Valkyrie. Before the Valkyrie ran out of energy, she suffered no damage. They would not dissipate. Of course, being attacked would consume the light energy in the Valkyrie's body. Of the 13 Valkyries, 2 had been killed by Han Chi. The light on the 6 Valkyries became dimmer and dimmer. On the other hand, Han Chi's attacks also became fiercer and fiercer, becoming more and more violent. Han Chi knew very well that the time he could fuse with the snake bone fear ghost was limited to 3 minutes. The bright snake divine connections effect was also around 4 minutes. This meant that he would start fusing with the devil snake. He had to end the battle within 3 minutes. He used the sacred source life form to surround the oath snake ring. He absorbed the myth Tu Fei that the bright snake of the floating world had obtained through the bright snake divine connection into his body. He was relying on the strong physique he had obtained after fusing with the snake bone fear ghost. Even if he was separated from the snake bone fear ghost, he still would not give up the bright snake divine connection's power. Then this power would directly explode him into pieces that filled the sky. There was only 1 minute left. Han Chi simply reserved 1/5 of the spiritual power in his body. The rest of the spiritual power was poured into the demon lizard Fang blade. Han Chi placed the demon lizard Fang blade at his waist. He spun it 3 times. The 3 indiscriminate attacks directly killed these Valkyries. However, Han Chi did not know that during his battle with the Valkyries, many people were watching. The gazes of everyone watching the battle were focused on the Fae that Black had just summoned. The Lien god had an extreme pursuit of beauty. In the Lien god's heart, the most beautiful and the most adorable. It was those fairy source-type lifeforms. Thus, the Lien god had been working to make fairy source-type lifeforms into dolls. She hung them on the windmill in front of her palace. But at this moment, the Lien god felt that, no matter how many fairy source-type lifeforms there were, they could not compare to the one by Black's side. A butterfly that flew high in the sky. This butterfly was purple in color, and there were many layers of purple. Thousands of purple colors gathered on this butterfly's body. It was as if one could see all the colors in the world with one glance. This butterfly was willing to fly in the sky. It made people involuntarily feel that this was the luck of the heavens. The Fae's beauty was extreme. It was probably the appearance of this purple butterfly. As the purple wings flapped, sparkling scales sprinkled down. It was beautiful to the soul. Those who followed Black on Star Web knew that he had the legendary Fae, the blue flash purple butterfly. However, the blue flash purple butterfly's appearance was far from this purple butterfly's. If the blue flash purple butterfly was compared to a cobblestone, then this purple butterfly was like a glass-type imperial purple jade. However, this purple butterfly was somewhat similar to the blue flash purple butterfly that Black had summoned. This purple butterfly must have evolved from the blue flash purple butterfly. After Lin Yuan summoned Zishao, he gave her an order. Purple Cloud, use silent scale powder and use 2 exclusive skills at the same time. After Purple Firmament heard Lin Yuan's order, it flew toward Han Qi. All the Star Web viewers couldn't help but hold their breaths as their hearts tensed up. Although Black was Hui Yao's hero, all the Star Web viewers could not help but want to curse Black fiercely. Why did you send such a beautiful little butterfly to fight? However, at that moment, the Radiance Federation's 13 High Lords, the Freedom Federation's High Lord, the Compassion Goddess, Li Su, had arrived. Second page revival was hidden in the team. Lan Sun, who was in the Azure Federation, narrowed his eyes. They all thought of a legend. They didn't expect this legend to be true. It seemed that there was no suspense in this battle. At that moment, the Star Web viewers only saw this beautiful purple butterfly. The moment the Valkyrie's phantom disappeared, it flapped its wings toward Han Qi and sprinkled beautiful pinkish-purple scales. 7017K. Chapter 1721. The light reflected by the pinkish-purple scale powder shone on the 5,000 square meter execution platform. It enveloped 10% of the purple light. The purple light was dreamy, and all the audience could not help but be mesmerized. It was as though their hearts and souls were being attracted by this pinkish-purple color and could not escape. Purple Sky's ability was Silent Scale Powder. It could release an adhesive scale powder with a silence effect. The target that came into contact with the scale powder would not be able to communicate with Spirit Chi to release abilities. At the same time, the target would also absorb the opponent's Spirit Chi. Under the effect of Spirit Chi, the scale powder would absorb Spirit Chi to multiply. This ability did not have much effect on Han Qi at the moment. Han Qi did not need to release the ability now. He only needed to use the energy contained in his body to slash the class Demon Lizard Fang Blade. Lin Yuan did not point to Purple Sky using the Silent Scale Powder to harm Han Qi. Purple Sky's main killer move was not the exclusive skill Scale Powder Halo. Scale Powder Halo reflected strong light through its own scale powder, causing the target to suffer optical pollution. It caused dizziness and temporary blindness, which was a kind of group control. Han Qi was now in a state of dizziness and blindness. He could casually slash the Demon Lizard Fang Blade and attack the surroundings indiscriminately. It allowed the concentrated attacks to have a defensive effect during the period of blindness. In fact, Lin Yuan could summon Purple Sky because of the exclusive skill Mind Soul Beauty Goddess that it had obtained when summoning a fantasy breed. Purple Sky itself was a kind of extremely beautiful fae that was appreciated by the world. Purple Sky could use the spirit and soul power contained in its body. It used spirit and soul power as a catalyst. It magnified beauty to an unlimited extent. It created a charm and attraction effect on the target, causing the target to enter a state of affection. The target that entered a state of affection would instinctively want to keep everything from Purple Sky's main body on its body forever. The target that was in a state of affection would feel proud of collecting Purple Sky's main body's things. The middle-rank demon that Han Qi had just contracted had used a charm method to seduce Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan decided to give it a taste of its own medicine. He would let the Freedom Federation's unique demon know. In terms of charm, you demons are just the younger brother. Under the scale powder, Han Qi, who was clearly blinded, attacked the surroundings indiscriminately. He breathed in the scale powder that Purple Sky had sprinkled. It was as though the scale powder that Purple Sky sprinkled was Han Qi's most beloved object. A large amount of scale powder was absorbed into Han Qi's body. The devil hidden in Han Qi's body and fused with him was naturally affected as well. The affected devils resisted for a short while. He subconsciously fought with Han Qi for the scale powder that he absorbed into his body. A large amount of scale powder gathered in the body of the snake bone demon. As a result, Snake bone fear of ghosts lost the ability to activate the spiritual energy within its body and unleash its skills. Without waiting for the intoxicated Han Qi to react, Yi Qingtang's eyes lit up. Han Qi's body, which had fused with the snake bone and the ghost, instantly swelled up in the purple mist and exploded into pieces. And from Han Qi's body, a body covered in sharp bone spikes fell down. The snake's sharp tail rose high in the air. The end of the tail pierced through the throat and strangled the strange life form. This life form had a timid expression on its face. But under his cowardice, his eyes were filled with sinister schemes. The aura of depravity on his body made people feel very uncomfortable. This strange and terrifying creature was precisely the snake bone fear ghost that had suffered heavy injuries due to the energy explosion in Han Qi's body. According to normal circumstances, Han Qi's death would not have happened. At this moment, Snake Bones was afraid of ghosts, so he should not be breathing. However, this snake bone fear ghost did not seem to be affected at all. Li Su immediately knew that this was a devil produced by the Freedom Federation's Devil Cathedral. It would not be like a bloodline of desolation fey, which would disappear with the death of the contractor. Instead, it could survive independently. Of course, Lin Yuan could not jump to a conclusion without careful research on this snake bone coward. This snake bone fear ghost wanted to escape, but it was bound by the quicksand vortex that suddenly appeared. At that moment, Li Su could finally see the devil's true data. With a glance, Li Su realized something. The devil's data was different from Fei's. The devil's abilities and exclusive skills could only be activated and used after fusing with a spirit qi professional. This made the devil look like a kind of companion life form. Furthermore, Han Qi had fused with this snake bone fear ghost earlier, and its strength had increased by a huge margin. That was why its physical body had reached the level of a myth breed Fei. It was enough to withstand the power of a pinnacle myth too. It could be said that the devil could be called the most outstanding kind of possession life form. Putting aside the fact that this devil was already seriously injured. Even if it was not seriously injured, it would still be able to wrestle with the Diamond X/Fantasy V Source Sand. It might not be able to defeat the Source Sand. After all, the Source Sand had always been nurtured by Lin Yuan in the best way. When Li Su had turned the Source Sand into a cage to capture the snake bone fear ghost. This general execution duel was because the main general had died. It was completely over. As for the two independent 100 sequence members who had ascended the general execution stage. Before Han Qi, when they had no choice but to attack, they had already died on the general execution stage. After ascending the general execution stage, they had not been able to unleash their strength. However, they had been killed by their own people. No matter how one looked at it, it was full of irony. At that moment, the Star Web audience was in a complete uproar. In this duel, Lin Yuan might not have displayed his full strength. However, this duel could definitely be called an evenly matched duel. This general execution duel would be decided in one duel. The duel lasted for nearly 20 minutes. It allowed all the Radiance Federation's citizens to know how the top spirit qi professionals of the younger generation fought. Horizon Maple Leaf, black is too strong. What kind of duel is this? Why do I feel that such a duel is beyond my understanding? Black is probably stronger than the top 10 of the 100 sequence. Memories in the wind, hee hee. I'm from the Myriad Generals Pavilion, a top faction. Based on my understanding of the 100 sequence, I'm afraid that apart from His Majesty's disciples, Lu Jie and Xia Qing, no one else has the ability to fight against Black. Light of Tomorrow, Black Bullpen. After being a fan of Black for so long, Black has once again become the hero of the Radiance Federation. Purple Star. This time, the people that the Freedom Federation sent were killed by Black. There won't be any conflict, right? Past Black. Do you think that the purple-haired youth that Black killed on the Freedom Federation's side did not have the intention to kill? If it wasn't for Black's strength and its unexpected resistance to poison, Black would have been dead after being bitten by that little blue snake. The spectators on Star Web were constantly discussing. The entire Star Web was in an excited and uplifting mood. It was because of a youth wearing a silver mask. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation had collided, and the Radiance Federation had won. 7017K. Chapter 1722. It was different from the cheers and excitement on StarWeb. The candidates and the Radiance 100 sequence members were surprised by Black's strength. They were proud of him. But now, everyone was holding their breath nervously. After the general execution battle, the team battle would be held soon. The examinees and the members of the Liberal 100 sequence present were the clearest about their own abilities. Especially the Radiance 100 sequence members who had just been selected, the 91st to the 100th. For example, Li Nao and Zhang Zihao could be 100% sure. If the two of them went up, they would definitely be like the two independent 100 sequence members. Even if they were affected by the battle's aftermath, they would lose their lives. Han Qi was using the demon lizard Fang blade the entire time on the general execution stage. Under Black's restriction of only being able to use one precious treasure, Black chose to use an artifact to protect the two Radiance 100 sequence members who were on the stage. Black was really gentle. Black was standing on the general execution stage. There were two new suns above his head. The shadow of a woman whose entire body was fiery red was holding a phoenix neck pipa in her hand and standing beside Black. The purple butterfly that had bewitched all the audience landed on the silver mask on Blackie's forehead. Before that purple snake-shaped devil was completely controlled and bound. Even if there was a trace of danger, Black did not release the two Radiance 100 sequence members. Such a Black could be called a true leader of the Radiance 100's younger generation. Even compared to the Radiance envoy Lu Yifan, he was not inferior and equally dazzling. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan in surprise. The strength that Lin Yuan had displayed was beyond the Moon Empress' imagination. The Moon Empress had always known that Lin Yuan was very strong. However, she did not expect him to be so strong. She had only become Lin Yuan's master for less than a year. When Lin Yuan had become her master, he had still been a rookie who could not resist a platinum fei. But now, after a few months of growth, Lin Yuan was already standing at the peak of the Radiance 100's younger generation. Or rather, it was not just Radiance. In the entire Origin world, Lin Yuan was an absolutely dazzling existence. It was hard to look away from his dazzling brilliance. The Moon Empress could feel that the other 12 excellencies were looking at her in surprise. They were probably thinking about how she nurtured her disciples. The Moon Empress actually had many ideas on how to nurture Lin Yuan. But the Moon Empress realized something. Lin Yuan did not like receiving his help. In other words, he had always been self-sufficient as a creation master. Not only did the Moon Empress not want to investigate all of this, but she also didn't want to. He had always wanted to help Lin Yuan hide. However, it was precisely because of this that the Moon Empress felt that Lin Yuan was a prodigy. To put it bluntly, even if he didn't become Lin Yuan's teacher, he wouldn't be able to do so. As long as Lin Yuan didn't cause any trouble in the early stages and was targeted by others, he wouldn't be able to escape. He had a certain amount of time to develop and accumulate. If Lin Yuan wanted to, he was still qualified to take a step forward. By becoming a Radiance 100 sequence member, he would fight for the position of a Radiance envoy 2 years later. At that moment, the Moon Empress' eyes slowly turned from shock to pride and honor. On the Azure Federation's side, Lan Sun frowned several times. Lan Sun frowned. This had nothing to do with Black. It was all because of Yin Lin. Lan Sun could see that Yin Lin was very nervous about Black the whole time. When Black was attacked, Yin Lin would feel uneasy and angry. When Black gained an advantage, Yin Lin would be excited and happy. It could be said that Black's situation in the arena completely controlled Yin Lin's emotions. This was something that Lan Sun could not understand. Then, Lan Sun had an idea. He suddenly recalled the relationship between Yin Lin and the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan. Starting from the Radiance Federation, Yin Lin had only been moved by these two people. Lan Sun took a few glances at the Moon Empress and thought to himself, Black should be the same person as Lin Yuan. If that was the case, then when the Freedom Federation was targeting the Radiance Federation would not be able to survive. The Radiance Federation had also set up a huge trap for the Freedom Federation, if his guess was correct. As an Azure envoy, Wang Lin had already joined the fray. For the Radiance sect, he had ruthlessly cheated the Freedom Federation. Thinking of this, Lan Sun sighed. He seemed to have predicted that after the team battle, both the Radiance and Freedom Federation would be defeated. A conflict was bound to break out. He only hoped that when the time came, the Azure Federation would not be dragged into this. However, seeing Wang Lin's current state, was it really possible? On the Freedom Federation's side, Li Yi frowned. It could be said that the current situation was completely out of Li Yi's expectations. Under normal circumstances, Han Qi should not have appeared in the Independent 100 sequence. It was for this plan that Li Yi had asked Du Miao to arrange a seat for Han Qi in the Independent 100 sequence a year in advance. Otherwise, given Han Qi's situation, there was no need for him to become a member of the Independent 100 sequence. Du Miao had not publicly accepted Han Qi as a disciple. However, he had secretly taught Han Qi for more than 5 years. Han Qi was Li Yi, who had informed Du Miao of his plan. He had borrowed it from Du Miao. Now that Han Qi was dead, Li Yi felt that when he returned to the Freedom Federation, he really had no way to explain to Du Miao. Du Miao would probably go crazy if his 5 years of hard work went to waste. After Han Qi died, Lian Shen's face did not have a trace of other expression. It was as if the one who died was not the Freedom Federation's prodigy. Lian Shen was still reminiscing about the feeling she had felt from Black just now. The Freedom Federation's mission to the Radiance Federation was Li Yi's idea, and it had nothing to do with her. Lian Shen's purpose for coming here was to ensure Qian Yu's safety. At the same time, Lian Shen had another plan in mind. That was if it was possible. Lian Shen planned to take Black away from the Radiance Federation. Then she would properly check Black inside and out. She would see what Black was relying on to make her feel a trace of palpitation. Qian Yu's face was gloomy. On the Radiance Federation's side, Black's strength was simply too astonishing. After a duel, even Qian Yu, who was a Freedom envoy, was unable to completely see Black's depths. It was an attack from the 8 cattails. Qian Yu could not help but tremble in fear. It was a known fact that this attack was not unleashed by a Fey. It was used by Black through the Fey's ability. The power was at least 30% weaker. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian. There was even a hint of delight on his face. Han Qi was the same age as the trio and was in a competitive relationship with them. In the future, they would definitely compete for the position of Freedom Envoy and Freedom Knight. Now, there was one less opponent. This reduced a lot of pressure on the trio. On the Freedom Federation's side, there was a sorrowful look on their faces. Only that young man with short white hair remained. At that moment, Lin Yuan, who was on the general execution platform, suddenly realized something. The snake-bone fear ghost, which was bound by him, had changed. 7017K. Chapter 1723. Originally, Snake Bone's timid ghost was only seriously injured. The source sand wrapped around Snake Bone's timid ghost's wrist and ankles and extracted chain swords. These 8 chain swords, which were made of radium-uranium steel, completely locked Snake Bone's timid ghost in place. However, in less than 3 minutes, Li Tianlan's expression changed. Snake Bone's timid ghost suddenly leaked a large amount of vitality for unknown reasons. Lin Yuan did not use the source sand to attack Snake Bone's timid ghost, but it died under the source sand's restraint. Lin Yuan's plan to capture a middle-rank demon alive completely failed. The dead Snake Bone's timid ghost's body gradually turned into an eye-like black crystal. The moment the black crystal appeared, Lin Fan's eyes widened. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian looked at this black crystal with greedy eyes. This eye-like black crystal was very important to the 3 of them. On the battlefield, Han Qi had been the defeated party. Everything that Han Qi and the 2 Liberal 100 sequence members had been controlled by Lin Yuan, who was the victor. Everything had been controlled by Lin Yuan, who was the victor. Previously, when Lin Yuan had been training in the Dimensional Rift, the source sand would spontaneously help Lin Yuan collect the spoils of war. After losing the control of the floating earth serpent, the source sand became active. It devoured all the spoils of war on the battlefield and put them into the guard sand. At that moment, the guard sand's palm was holding 3 pieces of spatial equipment. The Class 5 Demon Lizard Fong Blade, the Class 4 Snake Arm Guard, and the Class 4 Terror Serpent Ring. There was also the Class 3 Sacred Source Life Form, the oath encircling the Snake World's remains. Any one of these items could be considered a huge fortune, especially the 2 Class 4 artifacts and 1 Class 5 artifact. Such resources could already be considered a Federation's foundational resources. A Class 5 Creation Master would need more than a month to refine a Class 4 artifact. A Class 5 artifact would need nearly 2 months to refine. The 3 artifacts did not include the Sacred Source Lifeform's body. They would need to occupy a Class 5 Creation Master's body for nearly 4 months. Lin Yuan took out a Diamond Fey storage box that he had never used before in front of the Freedom Federation's envoys. He stored all these items in the Diamond Fey storage box. Then he walked off the stage. Other than Lu O, the Freedom Federation's envoys, no one mourned Han Chi's death. But the younger generation, including Chen Yu, all gritted their teeth and looked at Black. He wished he could break Black's bones and drain Black's blood. Lin Yuan ignored these gazes and calmly walked down the general execution stage. The moment Lin Yuan walked off the general execution platform, cheers rang out on Star Web and in the real world. And he, Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, Lu Jie, and Gao Feng all knew that Lin Yuan was Black. Among these people, and he and Zhong Zhe were the most shocked. Both of them had fought with Lin Yuan before. The strength that Lin Yuan had displayed in this battle was the same as the battle against Zhong Zhe at the Nix Assembly. Moreover, the trump card he used in the battle with Anha on the island was completely different. When Lin Yuan had fought against Zhong Zhe, he had used the Jackdaw's Withering Strike to establish his victory. When he was fighting in he still used the Jackdaw's Withering Strike. Later, when he had helped the Mother of Bloodbath awaken its favored spirit bloodline, he had executed the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike. The Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike made he think that this was Lin Yuan's full strength. On the sea, Lin Yuan had executed the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike with the advantage of the geographical environment. It was enough to contend with a Myth 3 Fey. At that time, and he had already been convinced by Lin Yuan after he had executed the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike. However, Lin Yuan was also holding this sacred sword. He had executed a sword skill that Zhong Zhe and he had never seen before. Both of them suddenly felt that even if they had improved, if they fought again, they would not be Lin Yuan's match. Their improvement in strength was also related to Lin Yuan. If not for that heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl containing the goddess Gossamer, Zhong Zhe's Desolation Bloodline Fey, the Burning Sky Centipede, could not purify its bloodline and master the top-notch Red Plum Meteorite Fire. Without the nearly 1,000 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls that Lin Yuan had given. And he could not have allowed the mountain-suppressing centipede and the awakening hibernation earth dragon to purify and mutate one's bloodline. Seeing Lin Yuan walk back to the team, Lu Jie subconsciously took 2 steps forward and stood beside Lin Yuan. Lu Yifan gave Lin Yuan a thumbs up. This scene was seen by the Star Web audience. It was equivalent to Black obtaining the Radiance Envoy's affirmation. Those who had been guessing what kind of phase Black had on Star Web. After this battle, the nervousness in their hearts dissipated. They kept posting and discussing the phase that Black had revealed. Lu Shuang's live-streaming room exploded again after 8 tails appeared behind Black. However, as a pinnacle king-class expert, Lu Shuang did not keep commentating like before in order to collect traffic. Lu Shuang silently prayed in her heart. In this general execution battle, the enmity between the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation was completely formed. The team battle would undoubtedly be much more tragic than the general execution battle. The duel between the two sides would probably only stop when one side was completely annihilated. At this moment, there was a group of people in black armor, all of them wearing copper masks on their faces. The masks were engraved with numbers. This group of people had a total of 12 people. Just as they were about to reach the Radiance Federation, they encountered 4 carriages. These 4 carriages were very strange. The 4 carriages were not pulled by the 4 different colored stone horses in front of the carriages. These 4 different colored stone horses were lifted by 4 groups of ascetics who were suffering from different hardships. These ascetics who were suffering from hardships were pulling the carriages forward at a fast speed. Each carriage hit a powerful and obscure aura. At that moment, the small group of people wearing copper masks intercepted the 4 carriages. The leader of the small group said in a cold voice, "The 4 horsemen under Ta Dian, Ing Zhu and second page. Death riding on the green horse, famine riding on the black horse, war riding on the red horse, and plague riding on the white horse. After 1,000 years, we meet again. Are you guys also going to the Radiance continent?" After being intercepted, the ascetics who were pulling the carriages stopped in their tracks. The ascetics who were pulling the green carriages were all dead. They had turned into soul-burning undead creatures. These undead creatures' bodies were deathly pale, and their clothes were ragged. It was unknown how many disasters they had suffered when they were alive. It was such a group of people who were pulling the palace-like green carriages. The ascetics who were pulling the black carriages were all as thin as a match. The ascetics who were 1.8 meters tall were definitely not more than 25 kilograms. Their skin was wrapped around their bones like an iron cage covered by a cloth. The ascetics who were pulling the red carriages were all well built. However, each of them had injuries from the war. Fresh blood kept flowing out of the ascetics' wounds. 7017 K. Chapter 1724. As for the holy white carriage, the ascetics pulling it were all infected with the plague. Their bodies were covered with pustules, and they kept vomiting. The plague miasma surrounded the ascetics. It corroded the air and made sizzling sounds. At that moment, the door of the red carriage was opened from the inside. A red sarcophagus was pushed out of the carriage by some unknown force. After the red sarcophagus appeared, the sarcophagus cracked. After the battle 3,000 years ago, the Tower Cannon and the Epic Temple signed an agreement. The Tower Cannon's 8th page closed the world for 3,000 years. Our Tower Cannon did it. On the other hand, your Epic Temple couldn't find that so-called sage for 3,000 years. You've been hindering our Tower Cannon's plan. Upon hearing that, the figure wearing the copper mask who spoke just now heard it. He took off his mask and took a deep breath. He spat in the direction of the red sarcophagus. A force that could split the sea by 1,000 meters crashed into the red sarcophagus. A muffled sound was heard. The Tower Cannon has done a lot of tricks in the past 3,000 years. The 4 of you have endured for 3,000 years, and your powers shouldn't have fully recovered. At your peak, our small team couldn't take down the 4 of you. But now, I alone can capture the 4 of you. We have to investigate something in the Radiance continent. Before we finish, the people of the Tower Cannon are not allowed to step in. Otherwise, I won't spit out level 5 mutated water next time, but level 6 mutated water. After saying that, the man put the copper mask on his face again. The figure in the red sarcophagus didn't say anything. At that moment, the door of the white carriage opened. The white sarcophagus was pushed out by an unknown force. A feminine voice rang out. "In that case, the 4 of us will go back first. But the Tower Cannon and the Epic Temple will remember this debt." The figure wearing the copper mask heard that. The debts of the Epic Temple and the Pagoda Cannon are endless. If we really want to settle the debt, it'll be the 4 temple attendants who will settle it with you 8 pages. It's not up to me, Chio 21, to settle it with you. If it wasn't me leading the team this time, but Lord Chio Fun. You won't be able to escape this time. The ascetics pulling the cart crawled around after receiving the order. Finally, with great difficulty, he straightened his tormented body. He dragged the 4 carriages and headed in the opposite direction of the Radiance continent. The young man standing behind Lian Shen was stunned by the scene. The purple flame of the black candle in his eyes flickered slightly. Then, the expression on his face relaxed. It was as if he didn't care about any of this at all. When Chio 21 led the team and was about to enter the Radiance continent, he suddenly seemed to have received some kind of command. A look of disbelief appeared on his face. Chiu 21 said to the 11 bronze masked figures behind him. Lord Hall attendant wants us to return to the shrine. It's said that the totem in the shrine has evolved. Hearing that, although the other 11 figures were all wearing masks, they didn't dare to make a move. However, at that moment, those people all revealed joyous and excited expressions. Then, the 12 figures flew toward the epic sacred hall at a speed even faster than when they had arrived. Inside the temple, four attendants were kneeling on the ground. They raised their heads and stared at the totem in the hall without blinking. Originally, there was only the totem god on the totem. There was also Lord Sage, who was above the Lord Totem and had his hand in the center of the totem god. But at this moment, a totem in the shape of a cat with 8 tails had appeared beside the sage. There was a bird-shaped totem with a corona on its head, a bone lotus totem, and a butterfly-shaped totem. No one knew what these 4 new totems meant. They also didn't know what these 4 totems represented. Why did they appear beside Lord Sage? However, the changes in the totems proved that Lord Totem God and Lord Sage definitely existed in this world. And some kind of change had occurred. The 4 attendants respectfully kowtowed to the 4 newly appeared totems 3 times. During the kowtowing process, no one noticed. It was unknown when Lord Sage's other hand had grasped a treasure sword that was held by a young girl. However, this sword was behind the sage's stone carving. Only when the light in the temple was the brightest could one see a trace of it. After exiting the temple, among the 4 of them, the only female voice spoke. Since Lord Totem God and Lord Sage's totems have both changed, it means that even if the epic bell is in chaos, it won't be affected. Before the main world is completely in turmoil, we should still follow the original plan and continue to wait. This female voice's suggestion was obviously approved by the other 3. At that moment, the female voice continued. The totems have already changed, there is no need for the 4 of us to continue to sleep. The power accumulated in these 3,000 years should now be completely absorbed into Lord Totem God's body. After saying that, the female directly returned to her temple. The excess power accumulated in her body for many years. In the process of kowtowing, it was transmitted into Lord Totem God's totem. The other 3, one in front and one behind. They all made the same choice. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly felt that his wrist was unusually hot. At that moment, Morbius' voice suddenly sounded in Lin Yuan's mind. Partner, I don't know why, but there is a sudden surge of huge power in my body. This power has all been transformed into the power source and stored. From now on, as long as there are no special circumstances, I should not fall into a deep sleep again. Furthermore, I can squander this source energy. My power source can do many things. Hearing that, Lin Yuan felt a little strange. Lin Yuan had always thought of Morbius as a kind of fae. Lin Yuan had never heard of a fae's body. An example of a sudden surge of huge power. However, since this was beneficial to Morbius, Lin Yuan did not think too much about it. He planned to return to the Return from Faraway Manor after this team battle, and then have a good chat with Morbius. Lu Wenxing, who was originally in charge of this duel, stood up again and said, "In the first general execution battle, the Freedom Federation's main general is dead. The Radiance Federation's side wins. Next, let's start the team battle. I wonder how the Freedom Federation wants to compete in the team battle? According to the rules of the 10,000 Nations Conference, the losing side of the general execution battle would decide how many people to enter the team battle. As for the rules of the team battle, it would be decided by the winning side. It could be said that Lin Yuan's slaughter battle had given the Radiance Federation an advantage in the team battle. Chapter 1725. When Qian Yu heard Lu Wenxing's words, his expression darkened. Qian Yu glanced at the masked black with a fearful expression. Qian Yu finally knew that there were tough bones in the Radiance 100 sequence. It was the same as the situation on his side. Han Qi's strength definitely could not compare to Luo. Han Qi was merely a disciple that His Holiness Du Miao had yet to accept. Furthermore, His Majesty Du Miao had many people that he cared for, and his resources were distributed to too many people. Thus, No matter how one looked at it, even if Han Qi was accepted as a disciple by His Holiness Du Miao, he was still the one with the lowest status among all the disciples of His Holiness. But Lu O was taken in as a disciple by Her Highness Nana when he was young. Moreover, there were rumors that Lu O was the son of Her Highness Nana. Nana doted on Lu O a lot. Han Qi only had 3 treasured weapons on him. However, if Lu O were to take out all the treasures he had on him, he would have more than 10. After all, Her Majesty Na was the leader of the Freedom Federation. He was the most qualified to be called God. At the same time, Nana was also a Class 5 creation master. Qian Yu and Lu O had known each other for 6 to 7 years. Qian Yu had always been envious of Lu O's resources. Moreover, the devil that Lu O contracted wasn't a middle-rank devil like them. Instead, it was a superior great devil. Qian Yu wasn't sure about the Radiance Federation's side. Were there any other hard bones hiding? The strongest people on his side were Lu O, Yan Ling, Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, and Qian Yu. Since he was the one who had confirmed the number of players on his side, Qian Yu naturally set the number of people to be 5. This was the most advantageous number for their side. Originally, Qian Yu had the thought of killing all the Radiance 100 sequence members. But now, the battle between Black and Han Qi. This caused Qian Yu to lose a portion of his sharpness and become more cautious. The leader, Qian Yu, did not discuss with the others. He said directly, "Our side's rule is that the number of people going up is 5. As the victor of the general execution battle, the Radiance faction has raised 3 requests. Our Freedom Federation needs the right to deny it." After Qian Yu expressed his stance, Lu Wenqing, who was Hui Yao's holiness, did not say anything else. Lu Yifan said, "Out of the 3 restrictions, the Freedom Federation can remove one of them. This is your right. I don't need you to remind me about this." Lu Yifan turned around and looked at Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, and Gao Feng. Finally, his gaze landed on Lin Yuan. Clearly, the Freedom Federation had limited the number of participants to 5. As the leader, Lu Yifan had already chosen the person he wanted to go on stage. However, he was different from the Freedom Envoy, Qian Yu. As the captain, Lu Yifan was willing to listen to the opinions of his teammates. After knowing that they didn't need to go on stage. At the same time, Li Nao, Zhang Zihao and the others felt relieved. He was also worried about Lu Yifan, Black, and the others. At that moment, Lin Yuan had released the 2 Radiance 100 sequence members in the Treasure Cave Golden Toad. After the 2 of them were summoned out of the Treasure Cave Golden Toad, Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. He glanced at the arena. Then, with an excited expression, he bowed toward Lin Yuan. After the 2 Radiance 100 sequence members were stuffed into the treasured artifacts made from the Treasured Cave Golden Toad's skin and stomach pouch, they had already died. Thus, he had been worrying about the situation on the field. He was afraid that Black would not be able to fight 1 against 3. Since Black was still alive, it meant that he had won the duel. The 2 Radiance 100 sequence members bowed toward Black to thank him for saving their lives. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and said to Lu Yifan, "Our first request is that no one uses artifacts." Currently, the only artifact that Lin Yuan was familiar with was the Treasure Cave Golden Toad brocade pouch, which was useless in battle. The Treasure Cave Golden Toad brocade pouch was the only artifact that Lin Yuan was proficient in using, and it was useless in battle. Although Lin Yuan did not know Lu Yifan, he knew Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, and Gao Feng. After all, the Radiance sex education method was after the phase system was completely formed. Then, according to the characteristics of the sacred source life form, they would match artifacts. Lu Yifan was the 3rd Radiance Envoy. As the 3rd Radiance Envoy, Lu Yifan definitely had an artifact. He definitely had an artifact. However, with only 1 person using an artifact, he would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage against 5 people using artifacts. Thus, no one used an artifact. Instead, it gave his side the advantage. In the previous duel, Han Qi had used the Class 5 Demon Lizard Fang Blade. His combat strength had increased by at least 20%. Most importantly, the Class 5 Demon Lizard Fang Blade provided Han Qi with an endless supply of energy. If not for the Class 5 Demon Lizard Fang Blade, Han Qi could only rely on the floating earth snake to eat dirt. Chimey, which had already transformed, could not hold on any longer. This duel allowed Lin Yuan to deeply understand how helpful a suitable artifact was to a spirit qi professional. Hearing Black's suggestion, Lu Yifan nodded. Then he frowned. Lu Yifan also understood. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation's education methods were different. Restricting artifacts was the most beneficial choice for his side. However, the Freedom Federation would definitely know about it. Then, in such a situation, the Freedom Federation had the right to remove a requirement. It was very likely that they would remove this requirement. After Lu Yifan expressed his thoughts, Yi Shiwen said, Lu Jie, Zhong Zhe, and Gao Feng's expressions turned grave. According to Zhong Zhe's personality, he would definitely say, so what if the opponent has an artifact? Our side is not afraid. However, Zhong Zhe knew. This duel was not just about life and death. It was about the Radiance Federation's dignity and glory. However, Zhong Zhe thought for a long time and could not think of a solution to the situation that Lu Yifan had mentioned. Previously, Lin Yuan did not understand the rules of the Myriad Nations Conference. He knew that his side could make 3 requests, and the opponent could only reject 1. Behind the silver mask, a smile appeared on his face. According to Yin Lin's information, the Freedom Federation's envoy team had a trump card. One of their trump cards was the combination of Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian's sacred source life forms. Gao Feng had the sacred source life form, the music box. That way, they would not have to worry about the combination of the 3 sacred source life forms. However, the Freedom Federation's envoy team did not know about this. Compared to artifacts, the combination of 3 sacred source life forms was undoubtedly much stronger. Zhong Zhe, Gao Feng, and Lu Jie had not participated in the duel. The Freedom Federation did not know much about the 3 of them. Therefore, the Freedom Federation's envoy team could not confirm whether they had a suitable artifact to use. Therefore, their second request was for no one to use a sacred source life form. The Freedom Federation's trump card was restricted. They would definitely not be willing and would not agree. 7017K. Chapter 1726. Therefore, even though he knew that this was a 2-way restriction, he still chose to cross out the second requirement. Lin Yuan voiced out his thoughts. The expressions on Lu Yifan, Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, and Gao Feng's faces relaxed at the same time. Lin Yuan had used the sacred source life form to unleash a Myth 3 Fei attack on the commander execution platform. However, as long as an offensive sacred source life form was nurtured properly, it would basically have the ability to fight above its rank. Zhong Zhe's sacred source life form, the Heaven's Blazing Fire, had already reached 5 stars. Zhong Zhe used the sacred source life form's heavenly blaze to open the gates of heaven and summon the flaming angel. The leading archangel had the strength of a Myth 3. Thus, on the side of the Freedom Federation diplomatic mission, he was not afraid of Lin Yuan's sacred source life form. He gave up on denying the second request. In fact, these 2 requests from the Radiance Federation did not need to be restricted anymore. However, since there was such an opportunity, no one would be foolish enough to give it up. In the end, the 5 of them discussed. In order to ensure the safety of Gao Feng, a pure support, each team could choose 1 member. This member could not be attacked before the other 4 members fell to the ground. This kind of request was made in the 10,000 States Conference. The federation that had pure support or healing spirit qi professionals in their team would always mention it. It was not a special request. After Lu Yifan revealed these 3 requests, Fang Qiu's expression changed. The faces of the Freedom Federation's side immediately became very interesting. After witnessing Black's strength, Yu Changjian, who had some complaints about the 2 disciples of His Holiness, could not help but say, "Damn it. The Radiance Sect's 2 requests are obviously restricting our performance. You all saw the Radiance 100 sequence test just now. That youth in white is Cicada Cry's disciple. It's obviously a pure support. The 3rd request has great benefits for the Radiance Federation. Based on the abilities displayed by Cicada Cry's disciple, if we keep the third request, we won't be able to fight a war of attrition with Hui Yao. I might be a support-type spirit chi professional, but I'm more inclined to control and attack. At the same time, Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and I will link our sacred source lifeforms. I don't have to worry about my safety at all. Yu Changjian's complaints could be said to be the thoughts of Yan Ling and Kai Hua. The two of them wanted to agree with Yu Changjian. But when they saw the expression on Qian Yu's face, they shut their mouths. Han Yu glared at Yu Changjian and said, Yu Changjian, this duel was ordered by His Highness Li Su. Her Holiness the Compassionate Goddess is watching from behind. Are you complaining because you are dissatisfied with His Majesty? In this battle, either we win or we die. This is the destiny of the three of you. Rather than complaining here, why don't we think about how we can win this battle? Qian Yu's words were reasonable. It was also a fact. The vague meaning in his words was like a sharp thorn that stabbed into the hearts of Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian. If they lost this battle, the three of them would definitely die. The three of them knew about the relationship between Her Holiness Goddess Lian and Qian Yu. He had no idea why Her Highness the Compassionate Goddess was so protective of Qian Yu. However, the Freedom Federation had previously held a life-and-death battle for the Swamp World's territory. As a freedom envoy, Qian Yu represented his family. However, he was schemed against by a few people from the other party's clan and almost died. In the end, the pity goddess appeared and protected Qian Yu. Even for Qian Yu, they did not hesitate to put pressure on the family that had two contemporary radiant light knights. In the Freedom Federation, this matter had once spread among the top families. The goddess of Lian, who was not supposed to be here, had arrived. It was obvious that if Qian Yu was really in a life-threatening situation, the compassion goddess would also lend a hand. Since Her Majesty Na had allowed Lu O to come over, she must have given him something to protect his life. Moreover, with the relationship between Her Holiness Goddess of Pity and Her Holiness Na, it would be impossible for her to win. Her Holiness Goddess Pity probably wouldn't mind protecting Lu. Then he would go to Her Highness Na to exchange for a large number of fairy source-type lifeforms. This was also the reason why Qian Yu stood out in this life-and-death battle between the five of them. He only said that the fate of the three of them was victory or death. At this moment, Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian. He could not help but feel a sense of sorrow in his heart. However, this mournful emotion only appeared for a moment before it turned into a strong desire to fight. The three of them were not sure why Qian Yu and Lu O had been chosen by Her Holiness Goddess Pity and Her Highness Na. However, the other Freedom Envoys and the current Freedom Knights had been chosen by Her Holiness. It was all because they had unparalleled potential. They had also proven themselves through certain things. This team battle with the Radiance Federation was now. It was the best opportunity for them to prove themselves. If they seized this opportunity and used the Sacred Source Lifeform's linkage ability, which could not be replaced by others. Basically, it was a done deal to become the next Freedom Envoy. At the very least, they could be ranked among the Freedom Knights. Moreover, if the three of them performed outstandingly, after returning to the Freedom Federation, they might have a chance to be accepted by Her Holiness as a disciple. Kai Hua, who had this thought, suddenly felt that his fear of Qian Yu had disappeared. Kai Hua looked straight at Qian Yu and said, "In this battle, the three of us will naturally use our full strength, even if we have to use that move. But before we go on stage, I hope that Lord Qian Yu can guarantee. Show all your trump cards, even if they will damage your potential." Qian Yu could not help but be furious. What was Kai Hua talking about? Her Holiness Goddess Pity and Her Holiness Li Su were watching from behind. In the middle of a battle, how could he possibly hide anything? If Kai Hua's words were to be heard by the Freedom Federation's families and Her Holiness. If the Freedom Federation's families and Her Holiness heard this, what would he become? Especially his family, which was on bad terms with several other families. If those families heard this, they would definitely use this as an excuse. Qian Yu coldly said to Kai Hua, "Kai Hua, be clear about your position. What right do you have to speak to me like this?" As a freedom envoy, what do I need to guarantee you? After saying that, Qian Yu coldly glanced at Yan Ling and Yu Changjian. He then spoke to Lu Yifan in a clear voice. The Freedom Federation has chosen to invalidate the Radiance Federation's second request. Both sides can use the sacred source life form. Qian Yu's words made Lu Yifan, Lin Yuan, Zhong Zhe, Gao Feng, and Lu Jie completely relax. Lu Jie placed his hand on his chest. In this battle, Lu Jie clearly stated that his duty was to protect. In order to protect Lin Yuan, no matter the price. His sacred source life form should also be humming. He just hoped that after he used it, Lin Yuan would not blame him. 7017K. Chapter 1727. Lu Jie had risked his life for Lin Yuan once before. That time, the two of them had been sucked into the upgraded Class 3 Water World Dimensional Rift. That was when the two of them were facing a strong enemy alone. This time, it was a 5-on-5 team battle. However, Lu Jie's thoughts were the same. As Lu Jie's strength grew, he was also able to control the situation on the battlefield. If there was an attack that was about to hit Lin Yuan, Lu Jie hoped that if he used his body to block in front of Lin Yuan, he could stop the attack from hitting him. He did not want to hurt Lin Yuan through his body. Qian Yu crossed out his side's second request. Therefore, the first and third requests were in effect. Both sides could not use artifacts during the battle. Furthermore, he chose one person in the team. Before the other four were defeated, this person could not be attacked. Lu Yifan replied, "Since our side has made a request, your side has also used its authority to remove one request." According to the 10,000 Nations Conference's team battle rules, both sides have half an hour to prepare. Once this half an hour is over, both sides will be teleported to a random location on each side. After saying that, Lu Yifan led the team to a building not far away. This building was the place where the two sides held a battle meeting before the battle. The space-time elder took out two shell-like objects. He handed them to the space-time attendant behind him. The space-time attendant took the two ethereal mother shellfish fragments that had been marked in advance and brought them in front of the Freedom Envoy, Qian Yu. The space-time attendant said, "These two shellfish fragments have been marked in advance and are one-time items for group teleportation. After using them, they can be teleported to a pre-marked location in the battle venue. To be fair, the Freedom Federation will choose first." Qian Yu took one of the shellfish. The Radiance Federation could not fake this kind of matter. Moreover, the terrain often only affected Spirit Chi professionals in one-on-one duels. In the team battle, everyone's phase and sacred source life forms were different. There was a huge difference in the reliance on the terrain. The terrain that might be beneficial to one of the teammates might be disadvantageous to the other. The space-time attendant asked Qian Yu to take one of the shellfish fragments. He sent the other shell fragment to Lin Yuan and the others, who had already arrived in the conference room. On the Freedom Federation's side, Qian Yu didn't immediately lead his team to the conference room to discuss countermeasures. Kai Hua was hoping that Qian Yu could swear. This was because Kai Hua had already made up his mind to fight for his life. Before going all out, Kai Hua wanted his teammates to give him a guarantee and confidence. That was all. Qian Yu was right. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian's backers were still a little weak. Unlike Qian Yu and Lu O, who were confident that Her Holiness would stand up for them in this confrontation between the two great federations. Kai Hua didn't have any malicious intent, but he was reprimanded by Qian Yu so harshly. He had no intention of making any promises to Kai Hua, Yan Ling, and Yu Changjian. Even if Yan Ling had always respected Qian Yu, the way she looked at Qian Yu couldn't help but change. Especially Qian Yu's words. "I am the envoy of freedom. What do I need to promise you?" Although Qian Yu was talking about Kai Hua, he was also talking about Yan Ling and Yu Changjian. Yan Ling said in a low voice, "I am the one favored by the three Her Holiness. I am currently the one favored by the most Her Holiness among the younger generation of the Freedom Federation. Sir Envoy, before we fight for our lives, I think you need to give us a guarantee." Putting Kai Hua and Yu Changjian aside, even if my sacred source life form doesn't link with them, I will still be able to defeat them. With the uniqueness of my main life form, I can still rank in the top 10 among the younger generation. Sir Envoy, I, Yan Ling, want a guarantee from you. Yan Ling had originally spoken up for Kai Hua and Yu Changjian. If Kai Hua hadn't been rebuked by Qian Yu, perhaps Yan Ling wouldn't have said that. Yan Ling knew very well that if she said that, she would offend Qian Yu. Offending the current envoy of freedom wouldn't do her any good in the future. Yan Ling felt that she was a good friend to this small team, but her words were always hurtful. She had always said whatever she wanted to say without thinking about others. Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, and Yan Ling were a team. Because Yan Ling was a girl and the three of them worked together, Yan Ling's sacred source life form was in the dominant position. Hence, the two of them had tolerated Yan Ling. In fact, they had long been dissatisfied. Yan Ling's words were meant to elevate her position. She wanted Qian Yu to give her face and make a promise. However, Yan Ling's words had pushed Kai Hua and Yu Changjian aside. She had placed herself above Kai Hua and Yu Changjian. The way Kai Hua and Yu Changjian looked at Yan Ling had completely changed. Yan Ling had relied on her own strength. Without the two of them, how could she have obtained the three majesties' favor? Kai Hua and Yu Changjian both felt that the two of them were helping Yan Ling. Yan Ling looked at Qian Yu. She didn't know that Kai Hua and Yu Changjian's gazes had changed. Just as Yan Ling thought that Qian Yu would give her face, Qian Yu looked at her coldly and maliciously as he enunciated each word. Yan Ling, in my eyes, what difference is there between you and a clown? You were born into a mid-tier family established by a branch of the Yan family, one of the 16 big families. You were originally not worthy of the surname Yan. Because you have some talent, you were given the surname. I, Qian Yu, was born into the Qian family and am the young master of the Qian family. In terms of background, you are not worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as me. In terms of talent, you are better than me? Without Kai Hua and Yu Changjian, how much higher can your position be compared to Han Qi? No matter how many majesties you have, none of them will accept you as a disciple. Kai Hua is not worthy of speaking to me like that. Do you think you are? Under normal circumstances, when Qian Yu was in a good mood. Now that Yan Ling had said these words, Qian Yu might really give her face. This was because Qian Yu had decided to bet his life on this battle. Otherwise, if he really lost, even if the goddess of compassion intervened and saved his life, if he returned to the Freedom Federation, not only would he no longer be worthy of being a freedom envoy, he would also bring shame to the Qian family. Qian Yu could still vividly remember the fate of his brother who had brought shame to the Qian family. Hence, when Qian Yu heard Kai Hua's words, he was so furious. Qian Yu forcefully suppressed his anger, but Yan Ling came at this moment. Qian Yu could no longer suppress his anger, and it poured out crazily towards Yan Ling 7017K. Chapter 1728. Previously, Qian Yu had treated Kai Hua to remind him of his status. So now, what Qian Yu said to Yan Ling was basically equivalent to a personal attack. Her family background had always been Yan Ling's sore spot. Because of this background, Yan Ling's heart was extremely inferiority complex and sensitive. That was why it was hard to empathize with others. She was sarcastic and arrogant, and always hurt others. Yan Ling originally thought that she was favored by the three majesties. No one would mention his origin anymore. But now Qian Yu had brought it up. It was equivalent to a blow that shattered Yan Ling's heart, causing her to lower her head. Yan Ling could not help but stab Qian Yu with 100 knives in her heart. As an A-rank spirit chi professional, Qian Yu already had the ability to produce a spirit chi shield to block the sound. Thus, the viewers on the internet didn't know about the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission and didn't go to the conference room for a meeting. Why are you still standing here? The upcoming battle was related to the Radiance Federation's glory. This caused the Star Web, which was supposed to be in an uproar because of the battle between Black and Han Qi, to be in an uproar. Suppressing his boiling passion. Everyone was looking forward to cheering together after they won the team battle. Of course, if they lost the team battle, there would be no need to cheer. This was because of Hei's outstanding performance in the general slaying battle. Lu Shuang and Poison Beauty's live-streaming rooms returned to the first and second most popular spots, just like before the Radiance 100 sequence had started. In the past, Poison Beauty's live streaming style had never been serious. But this time, Poison Beauty's expression turned serious. He clasped his hands together and said seriously, "You all know about my main Fae. I'm too weak to make any useful combat analysis. Everyone, why don't you pray for the next team battle with me? Believe in these 5 Radiance heroes, believe in Black, believe in Lord Radiance envoys. Lu Jie, Zhong Zhe, Lord Gaofeng." Poison Beauty's words resonated widely in the live streaming room. To these ordinary people, they could not participate in the battle for the Radiance Federation's dignity. However, praying and cheering were also ways to participate in this battle. In fact, these people had indeed joined the battle. Their prayers for Lin Yuan turned into golden spots of light. It appeared in the shrine in the depths of his soul. Previously, the shrine in the depths of Lin Yuan's soul had countless golden spots of light like stars. He could draw on the power of faith in these light spots at any time. But now, due to the increase in the number of light spots, Lin Yuan suddenly realized that the shrine in the depths of his soul had actually changed. These star-like spots of light formed a nebula. It surrounded Lin Yuan's will. As these nebulas circulated, he felt as if his soul was going to undergo some kind of change. However, it seemed that there was still a long way to go before it could truly change. Since Bai Lan had formed a contract with Lin Yuan, her bloodline had been purified multiple times. The immense power of faith and pure water elemental energy could strengthen Azure's bloodline. Lin Yuan had already fed Bai Lan the water elemental energy extracted from the elemental well. The purest water elemental energy in the world was absorbed by Bai Lan. Bai Lan's body showed some obvious changes. Originally, Blue had gained sentience in the water through an exclusive skill. After Bai Lan gained sentience, it continued to purify its bloodline. Lin Yuan noticed that Blue's sentience had transformed and was heading toward the merfolk. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan would transform into a merfolk form when he fused with Bai Lan. Now, Bai Lan's body was being nourished by this pure water elemental energy. It gave birth to an extremely noble bloodline aura. This bloodline aura made Lin Yuan feel that it had a trace of an apostle's aura. However, it also seemed to be more mysterious and profound than an apostle's aura. Lin Yuan could not figure it out for a while, so he did not think about it anymore. Lin Yuan felt that if he fused with Bai Lan, this noble bloodline that was born in Bai Lan's body should also fall on him. Lin Yuan felt that after fusing with Bai Lan, his form should undergo a huge change. When Poison Beauty led everyone to pray, she did not know that her actions would be of such great help to Lin Yuan. However, in the process of praying, it was just like what Poison Beauty said in the live streaming room. She had unknowingly ranked Black ahead of the Radiance Envoy and Lu Yifan. Perhaps it was because Black had created too many miracles. Poison Beauty believed that Black would definitely be able to continue creating miracles. Suddenly, Poison Beauty had an idea in her mind. After becoming a Radiance 100 sequence member, Black still didn't have a title. Poison Beauty suddenly felt that the title, Silver Masked Miracle, was very suitable for Black, regardless of whether there will be a day when Black takes off his mask. However, that silver mask had ignited the passion of too many people. It also brought too many surprises to many people. Let too many people know that miracles really could happen. On Poison Beauty's side, due to the limitations of her personal abilities, she was unable to effectively analyze the battle situation. But Lu Shuang was different. After all, Lu Shuang was a peak king-level expert, and she had already grasped the opportunity to become an emperor-level expert. Therefore, with Lu Shuang's strength, he was qualified to analyze and explain the battle between the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation's younger generation. In the previous battle between Black and Han Qi, Lu Shuang had been commentating the entire process. This allowed many ordinary people to see the situation of the battle clearly. At the very least, he wouldn't go so far as to watch the show in confusion. The bullet screen in the live streaming channel was urging Lu Shuang to analyze the upcoming battle. Lu Shuang pondered for a moment and said, "It's very easy for star web streamers to casually analyze a battle situation. But I don't understand the situation of the Freedom Federation's envoys. I also don't know the trump cards of our Radiance Federation's lords. This battle is a battle where the 5 lords are betting their lives. I don't want to exaggerate our side too much. If the 5 lords win, it will seem like this battle is too easy. Brothers, they are really betting their lives in this battle. I will commentate during the battle later. But I'm not a creation master, and the sacred source life forms involved in this battle are already beyond the scope of my knowledge. Lu Shuang usually spoke straightforwardly during her live streaming. But at this moment, every word that Lu Shuang said was said after deliberating for a long time. Lu Shuang could be responsible for every word that she said. Lu O watched as Qian Yu, Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Longsword were in a stalemate. He couldn't help but reach out and grab the white hair on the top of his head. Then he spoke. Big brother Qian Yu, in order to let the 3 of them feel at ease, please make a guarantee. Just as he finished speaking to Qian Yu, Lu O raised his hand and said, I, Lu O, will bet my life in this battle. In this battle, I, Lu O, will stake my life on the line. I won't be stingy with anything I can do, including the greater devil within me. 7017K. Chapter 1729. After saying that, Lu O stretched out his hand and placed it on his chest. Lu O had always been expressionless. His solemn and firm guarantee immediately warmed the hearts of Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian. According to Qian Yu's previous relationship with Yu Changjian, Kai Hua, and Yan Ling, Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, and Yan Ling would find it hard to work together with Qian Yu in the upcoming battle. Yan Ling's words had even caused a rift to appear between her, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian. However, Lu O was Na Na's disciple. He had set an example with such a high status and assured them. This had allowed Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian to let go of the grudge in their hearts. Even if there were still cracks in their relationship, they had to give it their all in this competition. Otherwise, there would be no chance of survival. Qian Yu had already been blown up by Yan Ling's words and lost his composure in anger. When he first heard Lu O's words, Qian Yu thought that Lu O was targeting him. As the current Liberty envoy and the leader of the Freedom Federation's envoys, when had he become so insignificant? You, Lu O, are Na Na's disciple. I, Qian Yu, am Lady Compassion Goddess's only caretaker. Apart from me, Lady Compassion Goddess doesn't care about anyone else. Therefore, after Qian Yu became the Liberty envoy, he had always been regarded as Her Holiness Goddess's disciple. Qian Yu wanted to reprimand Lu O. However, after seeing Lu O personally raise his hand to swear, Qian Yu felt a lot more comfortable. He knew that Lu O had done this to suppress the dispute on his side. He had to go and prepare for the upcoming team battle. There was only half an hour left for the pre-battle meeting. However, the stalemate had already lasted for almost 15 minutes. Qian Yu found that Her Holiness Goddess and Li Su behind him were looking at him with probing gazes. Qian Yu immediately knew that if he did not take any action, even if Her Highness the Compassionate Goddess did not say much, Her Highness Li Su would definitely flip out. His Holiness Li Su had a special purpose for this envoy mission to the Radiance Federation. If his side could not win this battle, Li Su's purpose would not be able to be officially implemented. For this goal, Li Su did not hesitate to cooperate with Pagoda Cannon. It was said that he paid a huge price. If something went wrong, even if Her Holiness Goddess Lian protected him, he would not be able to escape. Once he returned to the Freedom Federation, his days would definitely not be easy. With this thought in mind, Qian Yu raised his hand and said to Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian, as a Freedom envoy, I, Qian Yu, must set an example. In this battle, even if I become a cripple, I will still go all out. If Lu O uses a greater devil, I can also use my sacred source life form Hidden Sea Muse. You know the price I have to pay to use the sacred source life form Hidden Sea Muse. Every time I fuse with the Hidden Sea Songstress, the mermaid royal bloodline in her body will be consumed. It will take a long time for her to recover. I think I have shown my sincerity by saying so. According to a spirit chi professional's common sense, Emperor-class experts would activate their spiritual power shields. Even a powerhouse with an eternal spirit item would not be able to hear the content of the conversation within the spiritual energy shield. Li Su was indeed looking at Qian Yu and the others with a puzzled expression. She did not know what Qian Yu and the others were talking about. From the looks of it, there seemed to be a conflict. Could it be that they were discussing the battle strategy later? The pitiful goddess looked at Qian Yu with a cold gaze. Her eyes were filled with dense killing intent. It was as if Qian Yu, the freedom envoy, was not her favored one. Qian Yu did not know that after an expert awakened their birth providence. If they were fortunate enough to step on the path to heaven, they could call themselves gods. Their spiritual energy would undergo a metamorphosis. The pitiful goddess called this spiritual energy divine sense. Through divine sense, the pitiful goddess could pass through the spirit chi professionals' spiritual power shields and hear the conversation of the spirit chi professionals within the spiritual power shields. This situation was known to the Freedom Federation's three Her Eminences, who were qualified to call themselves gods. However, they did not tell the other eminences. Therefore, Li Su, who was standing at the side, did not know that the pitiful goddess had just calmly listened to the drama and was indifferent. It was as if the people who were about to compete were not the Freedom Federation's envoys. It was as if the glory of the Freedom Federation had nothing to do with the pitiful goddess. Not only did she not step forward to stop them, but she even felt that Lu O had stepped forward to end this conflict. It had affected her mood to watch the show. Only when Qian Yu said that he wanted to use the sacred source life form, hidden sea songstress, and fuse with her, the pitiful goddess's expression could not help but change in that instant. The pitiful goddess favored Qian Yu because Qian Yu's sacred source life form, hidden sea songstress, had the mermaid bloodline. The pitiful goddess had spent a lot of effort over the years. That was why Qian Yu's sacred source life form, hidden sea songstress mermaid bloodline, had evolved into the mermaid royal bloodline. But now, Qian Yu had not hesitated to use the sacred source life form's mermaid royal bloodline. Once the hidden sea songstress mermaid royal bloodline was used up, for a long time, Qian Yu would need to restore the sacred source life form's mermaid royal bloodline. It would no longer allow the bloodline to advance. This was equivalent to pushing back the pitiful goddess's hopes for a period of time. In the end, the pitiful goddess did not react. She only looked at Qian Yu with an exceptionally cold gaze. It was like a lion looking at a disobedient little wildebeest that it had reared for a long time. The pitiful goddess was the Freedom Federation's majesty. Stopping Qian Yu from using the sacred source life form's hidden sea songstress bloodline was equivalent to going against the Freedom Federation's interests. Secondly, the pitiful goddess did not want her secret to be known by the Freedom Federation. The Moon Empress should have crossed that line as well. Otherwise, she would not have been able to take out a pure eternal heart. Therefore, the Moon Empress must have heard what Qian Yu had said. It was fine if the Freedom Federation's majesty and the Pagoda Canon knew. If his weakness was in the Radiance Federation's hands, the Radiance Federation wouldn't be able to control it. Qian Yu would not be able to take her away no matter what. The pitiful goddess's expression changed in a flash. It was very easy for an expert who had embarked on the path of ascension to conceal their emotions. Therefore, in the war conference room, Qian Yu, who was hosting the meeting, did not know that he had unknowingly angered the pitiful goddess. There was nothing much to say in 15 minutes. Not to mention that Qian Yu could not tell Kai Hua, Yan Ling, and Yu Changjian all his trump cards. Even Lu O, who had spoken up to stop the conflict, could not do it. Although Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian usually work together. However, the three of them all hid some of their trump cards. Therefore, the entire war conference was held. It was basically no different from not having been held. 7017K. Chapter 1730. In fact, Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian all felt that they had a greater supporting role in the team. They hoped to be the one who could not be attacked by the other party as per Hui Yao's third request. Yan Ling's words were the most direct. Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, I've always been the leader of the three of us. Just based on this point, I should occupy this seat. Kai Hua said unhappily. Yan Ling, in terms of team support, I'm slightly stronger than you. Moreover, Jian is the true support-type spirit chi professional among the three of us. Even if I don't fight for this position, Jian is more suitable than you. Kai Hua knew very well that if he really fought for it, he would not be able to beat Yu Changjian. Yan Ling also had an advantage over him. It was better for him to withdraw and help Yu Changjian fight for an opportunity. This way, he would be doing Yu Changjian a favor. Compared to interacting with Yan Ling, Kai Hua was indeed more comfortable interacting with Yu Changjian. Moreover, Yan Ling's method of excluding the two of them. Even now, Kai Hua was still fussing over it. The dispute that had been suppressed by Lu O had formed a rift. The fight for benefits was once again stirred up. Lu O was not good at expressing her emotions and was on good terms with Han Qi. Han Qi's death had already made Lu O extremely angry. Lu O disliked Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian for a long time. Lu O treated Han Qi as a friend. However, Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian had always been excluding and ridiculing Han Qi. At this juncture, there was another quarrel. Lu O's eyes suddenly turned red. They were as red as thick blood plasma. Scarlet ghost patterns faintly appeared on Lu O's cheeks. At this moment, even his hair was dyed with a thick layer of dark red that could not be dispelled. Lu O's originally clear voice was filled with endless depravity and evil. The three of you, shut up. Otherwise, the three of you won't have to fight later. I'll eat the three of you, and I can borrow your abilities for one day. It's enough for this duel. Also, I'm very hungry. While speaking, Lu O stuck out her tongue that was 100 times redder than a normal person and licked her lips. She glanced at Qian Yu beside her. As a freedom envoy, Qian Yu couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. The way Lu O looked at him was like a person who had starved for a week and smelled the aroma of meat. The ghost tattoo on Lu O's face had already spread to her cheeks. This meant that Lu O's contracted Great Devil bloodline had reached that level. Presumably, Her Highness Na should have given Lu O the seed of Satan condensed by her Great Devil. Furthermore, Lu O had even refined the seed of Satan. Otherwise, Lu O's ghost tattoo wouldn't have reached such a level. Thinking of this, Qian Yu's gaze was half fearful and half admiring. Even if Her Holiness the Compassionate Goddess treated him, she wouldn't be able to reach half of what Her Holiness Na treated Lu O. Her Holiness the Pitiful Goddess also had one of the 7 great devils. The pitiful His Holiness had never said that he would condense the seed of Satan for him. He had only given her a devil seed produced from a middle-rank devil's body. This caused Qian Yu to have some complaints in his heart. He had yet to refine the seed of Satan. A devil could only devour one seed of Satan in its lifetime. Qian Yu felt that he should wait a little longer. Maybe Her Holiness the Compassionate Goddess would give him the seed of Satan produced by the great demon. Qian Yu felt that apart from himself, Her Holiness the Goddess of Pity's attitude towards the younger generation was the only one. There was no way he would leave the seed of Satan to someone else. Lu O's words and the aura he released. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian immediately became obedient. His body trembled uncontrollably. At this moment, the ghost tattoo on Lu O's face faded, and his expression returned to that of acute Shoda. He said, "Leave that spot for Yu Changjian." A support-class spirit chi professional that isn't adept at defense wouldn't have survived if he wasn't in this position. A spirit chi professional that is adept at support will be able to display the greatest effect in this position. Yanling, as a power offense-class spirit chi professional, just do your job well. Speaking up to here, Lu O turned to look at Qian Yu. Big brother Qian Yu, there are still 5 minutes left. You're the captain, so you make the arrangements. I will do my best to obey your arrangements. Qian Yu blinked his eyes. Arrangements? You've arranged everything that needs to be arranged. What else do I have to arrange? Qian Yu could not help but sigh in his heart. It would be great if the Freedom Federation's Freedom Envoys had the same status as the Radiance Federation's Radiance Envoys. When the Radiance Federation's Her Holiness disciples saw the Radiance Envoys, they would normally address them as Lord. However, the Freedom Federation's Freedom Envoys had to face the Her Holiness disciples who were truly chosen by Her Holiness. Even if they did not have to lower their heads in greeting, they would still have to lower their heads when they had to fight. In the Radiance Federation's combat conference room, Lu Yifan, who was a Radiance envoy, recalled what he had said to him. He immediately asked, "You guys should have an understanding of each other's strength, right? I've heard about it from little he. We only have half an hour, which is very short. There definitely isn't enough time for me to understand your phase and sacred source life forms. Why don't you understand my main phase, the desolate bloodline Fei, and the sacred source life form?" Lu Yifan waved his hand. He was the first to summon his desolate bloodline Fei. Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, Zhong Zhe, and Gao Feng did not expect Lu Yifan to be so frank. He had revealed all his trump cards in front of them. Lin Yuan had heard from he before. His senior brother was an extremely special defense-type spirit chi professional. At that time, Lin Yuan did not know that he's senior brother was the Radiance envoy Lu Yifan, who was ranked third. It was only after hearing from Zhong Zhe that Lin Yuan learned that the Radiance envoy Lu Yifan, who was ranked third, was he's senior brother. The moment Lu Yifan waved his hand, Lin Yuan suddenly felt as though a huge mountain had appeared in front of him. The layers of mountains gave off a feeling of desolation. In this stretch of mountains, there were many green peach trees. From time to time, green flowers would fall from the peach trees. On the tallest peach tree in the mountains, a green bird that was only half the size of a human was perched. This green bird had a white crane body and eagle feathers on its head. Its green tail feathers were not as gorgeous as a phoenix's, but there were 33 of them wantonly floating behind it. Lin Yuan could be sure that the scene in front of him was not an illusory skill. Instead, it was a manifestation of an aura. At that moment, Zhong Zhe could not help but exclaim, "Big Brother Yifan's desolate bloodline Fei has actually reached that level." Chapter 1731. The desolate mystic realm's bloodline of desolation phase were the same as the devil cathedrals. They all had extremely strong bloodline distinctions. The devils produced by the devil church were divided into low-rank devils, middle-rank devils, and high-rank devils. In other words, the so-called 7 great devils. Through proper nurturing, lesser devils had the chance to become intermediate devils. Lesser devils, on the other hand, had very little chance of evolving into greater devils. Of course, this was not absolute. After all, in the history of the Freedom Federation, there had been such a precedent. Among the bloodlines of the desolate bloodline phase, those that were labeled as inferior devils were Feis with the fake desolate bloodline. A Fei with a fake desolate bloodline would only have a trace of a weak desolate bloodline. It wasn't much different from a Fei. However, a Fei with a fake desolate bloodline had to be nurtured. As long as one could find a way to stimulate a desolate Fei's bloodline, they would be able to kill it. In that case, a fake desolate bloodline Fei targeting a low-class devil could easily evolve into a true desolate bloodline Fei targeting a middle-class devil. True wilderness bloodline spiritual objects had already reached a threshold. For example, Zhong Zhe and Lin Yuan's heaven-burning Ho and Golden Wings were true wilderness bloodline Feis. This kind of spiritual object that was born with the bloodline of the true wilderness would have a high chance of reaching the realm of the great wilderness through bloodline enhancement after birth. In the Radiance Federation's desolate mystic realm, there had never been a Fei that was born with a great desolate bloodline. As a result, it seemed that they were a bit weaker than the Freedom Federation's Devil Church. But in reality, that was not the case. In the history of the Freedom Federation, there had only been 2 or 3 cases of a middle-rank devil transforming into a greater devil. However, in the Radiance Federation, everyone's desolate bloodline phase had reached the realm of the Great Desolate. When summoned, the corresponding image of desolation would appear. The image of desolation was the symbol of a spiritual object with the Great Wilderness bloodline. The Freedom Federation's overall strength had always been stronger than the Radiance Federation. However, he had always been rather fearful of the Radiance Federation. It was inseparable from these great desolate bloodline Feis. After all, a great desolate bloodline Fei was qualified to target a favored spirit. The Moon Empress was the only exception. She had used some unknown method to obtain the loyalty of the Weeping Holy Moon Beast, the chosen spirit. Each of the Radiance Federation's majesties was equivalent to having a favored spirit. This was the reason why the Freedom Federation didn't dare to take the initiative to attack the Radiance Federation. Now, this reason should have been broken. That was because the Freedom Federation was about to have a fourth person, someone who was qualified to call himself a god. On the Radiance Federation's side, the Moon Empress was an exception. This caused the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation to once again enter a stalemate. The cyan bird that looked like a crane or a phoenix landed on Lu Yifun's shoulder. Lu Yifun said with a smile, "Little Zay is right. My desolate bloodline Fei, the peach sky azure bird, has indeed reached the level of the great desolate. However, the heavenly peach blue bird only stepped into the great wilderness a month ago. Thus, the image of famine looks relatively simple." Lu Yifun paused for a moment. He continued, "When you become Radiance envoys, you will be qualified to enter the desolate arcane realm for seclusion. Only there can desolate bloodline spiritual items transform from the true desolate realm to the great desolate realm. The aura of desolation there is not present in the outside world." Zhong Zhe nodded. His desolate bloodline Fei, Burning Sky Ho, had absorbed the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl. However, Zhong Zhe did not realize that his Burning Sky Ho's bloodline was improving from the true desolate realm. Zhong Zhe did not have time to ask his master, Bamboo Monarch. Now, Zhong Zhe understood what was going on. Lu Yifun introduced his desolate bloodline Fei, the peach sky azure bird, without holding back. He used Morbius ability, True Data, to check on the peach sky azure bird. Fei name, peach sky azure bird, Fei species, blue bird main species / desolate species, Fei grade, suzerain, 10 out of 10, Fei type, wood / soul, Fei quality, myth II abilities frowny face falling flowers. The summoned green peach tree will drop flowers. When each petal lands on the target, it will form a flower shield. When the shield reaches 3 layers, it will turn into a flower battle dress. When the shield reaches 10 layers, it will turn into a small peach sky azure bird that will protect the target. Heartless. When the peach sky azure bird mercilessly treats a target, the flower shield, flower battle dress, and the small peach sky azure bird will leave the target. At the same time, the shield's defensive ability will be converted into healing energy and transferred into the target's body. Amorous. The peach sky azure bird will treat its own target with affection. The flower shield, flower battle dress, and the small peach sky azure bird will enter a state of yearning for the target. After being shattered, the shattered shield's energy will be converted into spiritual power and injected into the target's body. Green peach demon. A young lady wearing a flower battle dress will appear under the summoned green peach tree. This young lady can use the spreading peach roots to restrain the target. The peach roots have a certain strangulation effect. Jade biting food. The peach sky azure bird will throw the jade-like peach fruit on the green peach tree at the target. The peach fruit will instantly apply an invincibility effect on the target. As long as the target's strength does not exceed the peach sky azure bird by a large level, this invincibility effect will not be nullified. Protection of the ocean. When faced with water element energy, the user has the ability to instantly calm the water element energy and return the damage to the target during a water element attack. Return of the Elite Guard. When devouring the soul of the Elite Guard with the Desolation bloodline, it can awaken a drowned Elite Guard in the water region. After the Elite Guard reappears, it will constantly release the Flame Emperor's intent ability. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Heavenly Peach Branch. When the green peach tree is attacked, it will rapidly grow new branches, and each new branch will bloom a peach blossom. Before the newly grown peach branches bear peach fruits, the peach branch's defense will be doubled. Green Peach Gift. Each peach fruit will contribute the energy contained within and give it to the peach sky azure bird. At the same time, the peach sky azure bird can freely distribute this energy to each of the small peach sky azure bird's bodies. Body for Marshall. The peach sky azure bird will select a target and analyze the target's characteristics to find the target's weakness. It will then transform the target's weakness into a weapon to make up for the target's weakness and provide assistance to the target. At the same time, it will provide its own ability to the target. After checking, Lin Yuan was shocked by the power of Lu Yifan's Desolation Bloodline Peach Sky Azure Bird. On the other hand, he found a very interesting point. The Peach Sky Azure Bird was in the process of metamorphosis with Chimey. The Flowing Cloud Azure Bird's name was very similar. However, when Lin Yuan observed the phase species, he immediately found a difference. 7017K. Chapter 1732. When Chimey had evolved into the Flowing Cloud Azure Bird, it had belonged to the blue sparrow/feathered wing species. Therefore, Chimey was called the Flowing Cloud Azure Bird because its feathers were green. Morbius had chosen to use the color of its feathers to name fays that had never appeared in the world before. Lu Yifan's Peach Sky Azure Bird was a bluebird's main species/desolate fay. Normally, when fays were divided into classes, they would follow the main class. This meant that there was only one type of fay in this class. Therefore, it could be determined that the Peach Sky Azure Bird's fay was named according to its bloodline. And he had said that his senior brother's defense support could be picked up in one go. Lin Yuan did not need to look at Lu Yifan's other fays and sacred source life forms. Just this Peach Sky Azure Bird alone was enough for him to be certain. And his words were not false. The Peach Sky Azure Bird's normal ability, Falling Flowers, was a flexible and versatile defensive ability. Especially on a target when there were 10 layers of petals, there would be a small Peach Sky Azure Bird guarding at the side. It was the most flexible and comprehensive defensive ability that Lin Yuan had seen among all the defensive abilities. The Heartless and Affectionate abilities looked rather complicated in the data introduction. However, in fact, it was an ability to heal the target's injuries and restore spiritual power. With these two abilities, Lu Yifan, a support-type Spirit Chi professional, could take on the responsibilities of a healing-type Spirit Chi professional. To a certain extent, he could take on the responsibilities of a healing-type Spirit Chi professional and a support-type Spirit Chi professional. Peach Demon Transformation was a type of group control. The Strangulation ability was targeted at relatively weaker fays. The Peach Roots could kill these weaker fays in a large area through the Strangulation ability. The Peach Sky Azure Bird's Peach Demon Transformation was able to suppress the insect swarm summoned by Lin Yuan's Red Thorn and Lu Jie's Insect Queen. The Platinum ability, Biting Jade Feeding, could be defined as a strategic defensive ability. It allowed the target to enter an invincible state, and it was not as simple as just blocking damage for the target. Some phase abilities and exclusive skills had certain special effects and curses. When these abilities landed on the target, they would cause a great impact on the target. The reason why Zhong Zhe was cursed was because he didn't have such a defensive ability. If the Heavenly Peach Bird had been there to feed Zhong Zhe with the Biting Jade skill, Zhong Zhe could effectively resist the curse. For example, Peach Sky Bluebird's gold rank skill, Peach Demonization, had a strangling effect. It could also be used for defense. The Jade-locking feeding skill mentioned that as long as the opponent's strength did not exceed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird by a large level, it would not be nullified. What was the concept of a big level? At this moment, the Heavenly Peach Bluebird's strength was at the peak of Suzerain Level 10 Myth 2. If it was a grade higher, it would only be the attack of a Monarch Fae. Only then would he be able to escape from the effects of Jadeite feeding. When the Fae reached Monarch grade, its strength would be at the Creation Breed level. In other words, the Heavenly Peach Green Bird could protect the target with its Biting Jade Rock Hurl skill. It could protect the target to the extent that it was invulnerable to anyone below the Creator Seed level. Previously, when Lu Yifan first appeared and ascended the seven-colored stone pillar, Lin Yuan saw Lu Yifan's other main Fae, the Yin-Yang Dual Bull. The Yin-Yang Twin Bull's strength was also at the peak of Diamond X/Myth 2. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation had always been the strongest opponents in the Myriad Nations Convention. Therefore, based on Lu Yifan's strength, Lin Yuan could roughly infer Qian Yu's strength. Qian Yu's Fae must also be at the peak of Suzerain/Myth 2. After examining Lu Yifan's Fae, Lin Yuan understood where his future goal was. Lu Yifan was still an A-rank Spirit Chi professional. Before a spirit chi professional could reach S rank, the strength of a Fae at the peak of Myth 2 was already the limit. Otherwise, as a Radiance envoy, Lu Yifan wanted to upgrade a Myth 2 Fae to Myth 3. He only needed a few law crystals. There was no reason not to upgrade it. As for the Heavenly Peach Bluebird's Diamond Street ability and Suzerain ability, in Lin Yuan's opinion, there should be a certain relationship. According to the introduction of the Suzerain ability, Elite Guard Return, Lin Yuan knew. Lu Yifan's Peach Bluebird had devoured the soul of the Elite Guard, which was also a desolate bloodline Fae. The Heavenly Peach Bluebird was a wood-type Fae, but it had a water-type ability at Diamond. It did not conform to the evolution law of Faes. Therefore, the appearance of this ability should be related to the desolate bloodline Fae, the Elite Guard. However, Lin Yuan did not know what had happened and why the Heavenly Peach Bluebird had devoured the Elite Guard's soul. Lin Yuan did not know. The Diamond skill, Ocean Protection, was too focused. It wasn't all-encompassing. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the Heavenly Peach Bluebird was at a disadvantage. The Suzerain ability, Elite Guard Return, allowed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird to summon the Elite Guard. It was different from the Heavenly Peach Bluebird, which was a defense-type desolate bloodline Fae. The Elite Guard was a power offense-type desolate bloodline Fae and had extremely strong offensive power. This ability allowed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird to have a certain level of insight in its attacks. The summoned Elite Guard continuously used the Flame Emperor's will skill. The Flame Emperor Mind's ability increased the strength of fire-type Faes on one side and burned the enemy. It was very compatible with Zhong Zhe's Burning Sky Roar. As for the exclusive skill, Peach Branch Sky, it fundamentally increased the Heavenly Peach Bluebird's defense. The Heavenly Peach Bluebird's defense mainly came from the peach blossoms that fell from the peach forest. Only when the peach blossoms were stacked 10 times would the small Heavenly Peach Bluebird be guarding by the side. The peach blossoms on the green peach trees were very easy to be attacked by the enemy. The exclusive skill, Peach Branch Sky, had the effect of doubling the defense before the peach blossoms bore fruit. It could guarantee that even if the enemy targeted the peach blossoms, it would be very difficult to destroy them. After all, peach trees bloomed first before bearing fruit. The exclusive skill, Green Peach Endowment, was a kind of endurance ability. It allowed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird of the Desolate Bloodline to protect multiple targets at the same time. It could also increase the strength of the defense while ensuring mobility. As for the exclusive skill, Body Transformation, no matter how one looked at it, it was very similar to the exclusive skill Specialization. But in essence, the exclusive skill, Body Transformation, was of a higher grade than Tool Transformation. Tool Transformation was a Fae that would randomly turn into an artifact for the Spirit Chi professional to use. Body Transformation could not only be used on other people. At the same time, it could also find the corresponding shortcomings based on other people's characteristics. It could turn into a weapon based on the shortcomings. It could make up for the shortcomings of the target. It was the same as customizing a weapon that would be of great help to the target. This was not the end. The Heavenly Peach Bluebird could also lend its spiritual power to the target. It was the same as turning into a powerful spiritual power battery in battle. Before Lin Yuan could continue marveling at Lu Yifan's Heavenly Peach Bluebird of the Desolate Peach Bluebird, Lu Yifan had already summoned his Sacred Source life form. 7017K. Chapter 1733. It was a tall lady covered in a black robe, revealing only half of her face. She appeared beside Lu Yifan. Lin Yuan was now 1.8 meters tall and was about to reach 1.8 meters. Lu Yifan was 1.82 meters tall, which was about the same height as Lin Yuan. Lu Jie was the tallest person present. He was 1.87 meters tall. However, compared to this lady, who hid her entire body in the robe, Lu Jie could only be considered a dwarf. She was at least 2.4 meters tall, and her entire body was shrouded in a black robe. Her upper body was as thin as an electric pole. Her lower body was abnormally bloated. This made the lady's body look very strange under the black robe. Generally speaking, people wore black robes to keep a low profile. This lady's black robe was inlaid with gems, making her look exceptionally luxurious. At that moment, the lady reached out and pulled the black robe off her head. Her black hair hung just above the dividing line between her fat and skinny body. Lin Yuan heard the lady speak in a soft voice. "Master, Lulu wants to eat gems." Lu Yifan hurriedly took out dozens of gems and tossed them to the sacred source life form who called herself Lulu. Lulu happily caught the gems that Lu Yifan tossed over. Then he tugged at the black robe beneath him, revealing an extremely gorgeous throne. This throne was inlaid with 3 types of gems. They were emerald, topaz, and purple agate. These 3 types of gems were earth-type spiritual ingredients. They were produced in the origin world. They could only be used when concocting spirit liquids of grade 3 and above. Lin Yuan took a closer look at the chair and found that there were actually 3 mouths growing on it. The 3 mouths on the throne were extremely similar to the lady's. However, the 3 mouths on the throne were dozens of times larger than the lady's. Lulu was currently stuffing the gems into the 3 mouths. She filled the 3 mouths with emerald, topaz, and purple agate. The emerald, topaz, and purple agate entered the 3 mouths respectively. Then, the 3 mouths emitted chewing sounds that made one's teeth ache. As the 3 mouths chewed, Lulu's face revealed a satisfied expression. Lin Yuan immediately knew that the humanoid sacred source life form was a foodie, just like Princess. However, compared to the princess, Lulu, this little foodie, was definitely more frugal. Princess usually consumed law crystals, world crystals, law origin crystals, and world origin crystals. Even the cheapest law origin crystal, which was easily obtainable, was much more expensive than emerald, topaz, and purple agate. Therefore, Lin Yuan had always felt that, no matter how edible the sacred source life form was, Princess would always be the benchmark in the world of gluttons. No one knew when the 3 mouths stopped chewing. The sacred source life form called Lulu spat out 3 small baskets from its 3 mouths. The 3 small baskets were filled with 3 types of specially processed gems. Lu Yifan threw a few dozen gems to Lulu and said, "My sacred source life form is called the Gem Witch. The current sacred source star is 7 stars, and the sacred source star is Earth. It's a defense-type sacred source life form." Lu Yifan then looked at Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, and Black. "My position in the team is a defense-type spirit chi professional, and I will coordinate with the support function. My offensive ability is not too strong. Therefore, when we fight later, the 3 of you will be the main attackers. I don't think I have time to show you my main phase, the yin-yang 2 directions ox and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams deer. These 2 phase abilities are defense and support at the same time. They can be used with my desolate bloodline Fei, the peach sky green bird. I will use them during the battle as I see fit." Lu Yifan's words could be said to be extremely candid. He analyzed his strengths and weaknesses. There were 10 minutes left before the end of the 30-minute battle meeting. During these 10 minutes, Lu Yifan said that he would not summon the yin-yang 2 directions ox and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams deer. This meant that Lu Yifan planned to use the rest of the time to introduce the sacred source life forms, the Gem Witch. Lin Yuan had Morbius true data, so he did not need Lu Yifan's introduction. He could accurately understand the Gem Witch's 3 functions as a 7-star sacred source life form. Sacred source name: Gem Witch sacred source species. Source family / sacred source species, sacred source star class. 7 stars, sacred source type. Earth functions frowny face protection of the emerald. The witch takes out an emerald gemstone from the gemstone basket in her hand and throws it on the target. When the target is attacked, the damage will be turned into a shield under the effect of the emerald to protect the target. Topaz's guidance. The witch takes out an emerald gemstone from the gemstone basket and throws it on the target. When the target is attacked, the emerald gemstone will transform into a shield to protect the target. Purple agate reshaping. The witch takes out a purple agate stone from the gemstone basket in her hand and throws it on the target's body. When the target's body is injured, the purple agate stone will change its shape and temporarily replace the injured part of the target's body. The reshaped part will also have the same defensive strength as the purple agate stone. Lin Yuan rejoiced when he saw it. He knew Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, and Gao Feng very well. The three of them were all outstanding spirit chi professionals in their respective fields. Lu Jie was good at positional warfare and group combat. Zhong Zhe specialized in single target and group attacks. Gao Feng specialized in support. Lin Yuan had been developing in an all-round way, but compared to offense, healing, and support, Lin Yuan was much stronger. Defense had always been his weakest aspect. Lin Yuan's defense mainly relied on the princess immunity to elemental energy. Genius buffered and reflected mental attacks, while the Source Sand's highly effective Guardian Sand blocked physical attacks. These three abilities had forged Lin Yuan into an iron bucket. However, if Lin Yuan wanted to help his teammates defend, he could only use the Source Sand. When facing the alien beast tide, the Source Sand was like a god that could protect any teammate that Lin Yuan wanted to protect. However, in the battle that was about to take place, the Source Sand would not be able to unleash such powerful abilities. Due to Han Chi's Fei, the floating earth serpent, the Source Sand was firmly suppressed. He could only rely on the samurai guard to fight. Moreover, every time the floating world bright serpent used its skill, Earth Reset, it would activate the skill. The Source Sand would be scattered. It took about half a minute for them to gather together. Therefore, he had been worried that his side would have enough offense but not enough defense. 7017K. Chapter 1734. However, the addition of Lu Yifan, the third Radiance envoy, made up for this. He gave the team the most advantageous protection. Lin Yuan's confidence in Lu Yifan wasn't just because of Lu Yifan's title as the third Radiance envoy. It wasn't just because of Lu Yifan's desolate bloodline Fei, the peach sky azure bird. It was because of Lu Yifan's sacred source life form, the Gem Witch. As a Class 7 sacred source life form, the Gem Witch had three functions. The first function, Emerald's protection, allowed the Gem Witch to exert an unimaginable defensive effect on her own unit. The sacred source life form's ability could be said to be equivalent to the truth. According to Morbius' introduction of the Gem Witch's ability, Emerald's protection, when facing any attack, the Gem Witch's emeralds could absorb the target's damage in the process of defending against the attack. It formed a shield to protect the target. The emerald's ability to absorb attack power was definitely limited. It would continue to strengthen as the Gem Witch's star rank increased. However, when they collided with the Freedom Federation's envoys, only Qianyu, who was also a Freedom envoy, could match Lu Yifan's target. In other words, as long as the Gem Witch threw the emeralds, it could absolutely block the target's attack. As for the second ability, Topaz's Guidance, it had an ability that was impossible to appear among Fey abilities and exclusive skills. This ability allowed him to accurately judge the target. It could determine if the target was in an unreal state. Unreal states could be divided into many situations. For example, bewitchment and illusion techniques could cause people to enter an unreal state. As for the Gem Witch's second ability, Topaz's Guidance, it could make the target who was charmed or under illusion make the best choice even in an unreal state. This ability was very useful in a team. It could effectively prevent a situation of 4 against 6. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the Purple Agate's reconstruction was an extremely heroic ability. For example, during the Radiance 100 sequence selection process. When facing the alien insects, some candidates' hands or legs were blown off and could not move. If the Gem Witch threw a purple agate at such a candidate, this purple agate would fuse into the target's flesh and blood. A new body made of purple agate would fill the target's incomplete body. Let the target continue to fight in a complete state. Furthermore, the body that was strengthened by the purple agate would have a stronger defense than the original body. This skill could be considered a godly skill in a battle of life and death. However, it had no effect on battles on the Star Web. After all, there was no fear of death in a battle on Star Web, let alone injuries. However, in the upcoming battle, the Gem Witch's ability to reshape purple agate was bound to play an excellent role. Lin Yuan's jasmine lily had the exclusive skill, severed growth. Even if the target's body was damaged, it could still connect to the target's genetic model and allow the target's body to regrow. The jasmine lily's exclusive skill, severance, was much better than the gem witch's purple agate's reshaping. After all, the purple agate's remolding ability lay in replenishment. After the battle, this supplement would disappear. The jasmine lily's exclusive skill, discontinuity, was to use vitality to reconstruct. However, compared to the gem witch's ability to reshape purple agate, if the jasmine lily wanted to recover a fey, it would need to consume a lot of vitality energy. It was undoubtedly very easy for the gem witch to use the purple crystal to reconstruct a fey's body. It could be said that through the Freedom Federation's choice, the 5 people who were about to go up on his side formed a perfect combination. Zhongzhe and Lu Jie, as power offense-type spirit chi professionals, were in charge of offense. Lu Yifan, as a defense-type spirit chi professional, was in charge of defense. Gao Feng, as a support-type spirit chi professional, was in charge of support. Lin Yuan planned to resume his old profession and set himself up as a healing-type spirit chi professional. In fact, when Lin Yuan had registered his identity as black, he had just contracted the jasmine lily. Chimey and Genius were not suitable for combat. At that time, Lin Yuan was essentially a healing-type spirit chi professional. However, Lin Yuan's combat ability was now much higher than his healing ability. However, the jasmine lily's ability was still there. It could only rely on its normal ability, heal, and exclusive skill, severance. It was stronger than most healing-type feys. Moreover, Lin Yuan's sacred sword also contained the healing-type sword skill he had obtained from the holy healing White Deer World's crystal. While he was using Morbius True Data to investigate the gem witch's ability, Morbius True Data Lu Yifan had already introduced the gem witch's ability to Lu Jie, Zhongzhe, and Gao Feng in detail. After understanding Lu Yifan's Desolation Bloodline Fey, the Peach Sky Green Bird, and the gem witch's abilities, the 3 of them pondered. At that moment, Lu Yifan spoke. Black, Zhongzhe, Lu Jie, the 3 of you will be the main attackers in the team. Do you have any ideas for the battle later? Under normal circumstances, Lu Yifan would be the Radiance envoy. After taking over the team, he could use his identity to command the team. However, Lu Yifan did not do so. Instead, he asked Lin Yuan, Zhongzhe, and Lu Jie for their opinions. This was because Lu Yifan did not understand Black, Zhongzhe, and Lu Jie's phase. Secondly, in a battle, especially a life-and-death battle like this between 2 sides, they had to ensure that the team had enough offensive power. Otherwise, they would not be able to win if they just defended. Therefore, in a 5-member team, the power offense-type spirit chi professional would be the one to command the team. It would be more convenient for them to attack. As the leader, Lu Yifan had completely delegated his authority without hesitation. From this short half an hour of contact, Lin Yuan understood what kind of person Lu Yifan was. Since Lu Yifan had asked this, it meant that he wanted to know their opinions. Lin Yuan replied, Lu Jie and I are both good at positional warfare. My source sand and Lu Jie's insect swarm work together. The sea of flowers that we summon can also restrict the opponent to a certain extent. We can also expand the land we control. Therefore, I suggest that we wait until we teleport to the duel area and not move. Spread out the formation on the spot. Lu Jie's black-winged owlet moths and my source sand can be in the sky and on the ground. They can effectively explore the surrounding environment. For the insect swarm, positional warfare only required them to be the center. They did not need to care about which direction the enemy would come from. The insect swarm's mobility was not to be trifled with. Chapter 1735. Even if the fortifications were deployed in the wrong direction from the start, the swarm only needed to move, and within a few seconds, they would be able to set up fortifications in another direction. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, Gao Feng's eyes lit up and said, When my phase, Breeze Hibiscus and Spirit Spring Lily, are in a specific area, the Breeze Hibiscus will use the airflow to help the Spirit Spring Lily recover spirit power. It can increase the speed at which the spirit spring lily gathers spiritual energy. I can do my best to help Lu Jie and Black recover their spirit energy. It will make it easier for the two of them to spread out their formation. Lin Yuan shook his head upon hearing that. He then said to Gao Feng, "My spiritual power should be enough for the battle later. You don't have to worry about me. Just do your best to supply the spiritual energy to Lu Jie, Zhong Zai, and Lu Yifan." Lin Yuan had already planned to open his spirit qi imprint and life imprint in this battle. Through the battle with Han Qi, Lin Yuan knew that the Freedom Federation had come prepared. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian were watching the general execution battle from below the general execution platform. The three of them were obviously afraid of the white-haired youth behind them. The other members of the Liberal 100 sequence were also very far away from this white-haired youth. This meant that this white-haired youth definitely had an extraordinary identity. He was definitely a hidden ace of the Freedom Federation. Therefore, in such a battle between the two great federations that was of great significance, there was no need to worry. Lin Yuan was ready to play his trump card according to the situation on the battlefield. Of course, Di Wanmi and the Emperor-class weapons that Red Thorn controlled through the Tongue of Relinquish. Furthermore, Lin Yuan and Bai Lan had fused together to obtain Bai Yen and other trump cards. He would definitely not expose himself. These trump cards were too important. Not only would people discover Red Thorn's abnormality, but they might also discover his uniqueness. It would be fine if these trump cards were exposed in front of the Radiance Federation's lord. However, the Freedom Federation's people were also here. Lin Yuan couldn't possibly reveal his trump cards. The mutation of the Red Thorn's Tongue of Relinquish was due to devouring that strange plant's seed and plant. Through the investigation of the whale ocean trade, Lin Yuan knew that everything was related to the Tower Cannon. It was said that 2 members of the 8 pages had come to Radiance. If he was detected by the people in the Tower Cannon, it would be equivalent to putting himself in danger. Furthermore, he had summoned an Emperor-grade weapon and an expert like Bai Yen. If that happened, then this competition would be meaningless. The 2 majesties of the Freedom Federation would definitely take action to stop the competition. It was only when he displayed the combat strength that was normal for his age. Only then was he able to kill the 5 young powerhouses of the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission. This left the 2 leaders of the Freedom Federation speechless. Lin Yuan's words stunned Lu Yifan, Zhong Zai, Lu Jie, and Gao Feng. He immediately knew that Lin Yuan definitely had a trump card that could help him recover his spiritual power. During the battle with Zhong Zai in the civil and martial arena, Zhong Zai had discovered Lin Yuan's astonishing spirit qi reserves. At that time, Zhong Zai could vaguely sense that Lin Yuan was just a B-rank spirit qi professional. However, Zhong Zai had used up all the spiritual power in his body, but Lin Yuan seemed to be fine. There was still a large amount of spiritual energy that could be used. Lu Jie planned to display the fruits of his labor over the past 6 months in this battle. Lu Jie said to Gao Feng, "Gao Feng, in terms of spiritual power, after we enter the arena, you will give me priority. The insect-type carcinoma Fey that I possess requires a certain amount of spiritual power to produce. During the battle, I will use many types of insect-type carcinoma Feys." Gao Feng and Zhong Zai had seen it before. During the Dark Knight Assembly, Lu Jie had used the insect-type carcinoma phase to battle. In order for the insect-type carcinoma phase to fully display their strength, they would need a large platform. It could be said that in the civil and martial arena, Lu Jie's usage of the insect-type carcinoma phase was restricted. Even so, Lu Jie still defeated all of his opponents in the martial arena. Lu Yifan could already see it. Black, who was wearing a silver mask, was obviously very familiar with Zhong Zai, Lu Jie, and Gao Feng. Furthermore, she was the one who could make the decision. Lu Yifan said to Black, "During the battle later, why don't you be the commander? During the battle, why don't you be the commander? I will provide the most thorough protection for all of you during the battle. You can trust me on this. Although I am not familiar with your phase and sacred source life forms, I will quickly familiarize myself with them during the battle." Lin Yuan did not stand on ceremony when he heard Lu Yifan's words. He immediately took over the responsibility of being the commander. Big Brother Lu Yifan, I will not be commanding you during the battle. We'll do as you say. You just need to protect us. While the Radiance Federation was deciding who would be the commander and how they would conduct the battle, all of the spectators on Star Web, including the Radiance 100 sequence members and the 13 Highnesses, had solemn expressions. In just one more minute, the half-hour battle conference would be over. At that time, the Radiance Federation and Freedom Federation's 10 members would form teams. At that time, the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation's 10 members would form teams. They would be teleported to either side of the duel ground. The battle would officially begin. When the battle started, none of the spectators felt that it could be broadcasted on Star Web. However, the 13 Highnesses had decided to do so. The Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift had opened and the 2-year agreement between the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation. This allowed many Spirit Chi professionals and ordinary people to understand something. Many Spirit Chi professionals who did not want to go to the Abyss world to develop and train had all signed up. They were prepared to temper themselves in blood and fire. In this turbulent great world, it was for self-protection and to protect the radiance in their hearts. All of a sudden, in the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation's combat conference rooms on both sides of the duel ground, the shell fragment that had marked the location in advance suddenly split open a spatial door. After this spatial door split open, the two groups of people walked into the portal at the first moment. This was because both sides knew. The first to arrive at the duel ground would be able to gain the upper hand to some extent no matter what combat method was used. The area of the duel ground was 10 square kilometers. This area was already extremely wide for a 5-on-5 duel between two teams. Within this 10 square kilometers, there were over a dozen types of terrains, condensed into 6 types of climates. Each terrain and climate had a certain degree of help for a specific phase. This caused each climate and environment to have a certain impact on the battle situation. Lin Yuan, Lu Yifan, Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie and Gao Feng. They were teleported to a hilly area. The hilly area was considered the worst terrain among the dozen types of terrains. 7017 K. Chapter 1736. Firstly, the hills would block the line of sight. Secondly, if a huge land fey was summoned in the hilly area, these land feys would be restricted in the hilly area. But all of this was not a bad thing for Lin Yuan. After the hard rocks of the hills were ground by the source sand, they would be more powerful. Lin Yuan's hand shook, and the amber button-shaped source sand fell on the hard rock under his feet. Lin Yuan's hand shook, and the amber button-shaped source sand landed on the hard stone under his feet. Lin Yuan raised his hand and used little black spirit injection on himself and Lu Jie. Lin Yuan raised his hand and cast spirit injection on himself and Lu Jie. The source sand quickly ground the surrounding rocks and frantically created sand. In less than a minute, it turned an area of 2,000 square meters. In less than a minute, it had covered an area of 2,000 square meters. Lin Yuan had cooperated with Lu Jie before. In a sense, the yellow sand was the best shelter for the insect swarm. In a sense, the yellow sand was the best cover for the swarm. In a sense, the yellow sand was the best shelter for the insect swarm. Under the guidance of the breeze hibiscus, the surrounding spiritual power quickly gathered toward the spirit spring lily. Each of the spirit spring lily's blooming flowers spat out a stream of spirit spring water. Dozens of spirit spring water flowed into Lu Jie's body. In an instant, Lu Jie felt the surging spiritual power contained in these spirit springs. Lu Jie stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. The dimensional light moth immediately appeared above Lu Jie's head. Then the dimensional light moth flew low and used the 2 stone hills that Lin Yuan had deliberately left as cover. A large number of flesh-mincing blade insects, lightning-gathering moths, plasma caterpillars, and hurricane owlet moths were produced. Those hurricane owlet moths were all simplified versions. The huge wings rode the wind and had a speed not inferior to the bronze divine travel black swallow. These hurricane owlet moths scattered like snowflakes. It was to find the location of the Freedom Federation's envoy members in the air. In a very short time, as Lu Jie's spiritual power was constantly consumed. Gao Feng even had to let the spirit spring lily begin to restore his spiritual power. It could be said that Gao Feng had almost given more than half of the spiritual power in his body to Lu Jie in an instant. This allowed Lu Jie's insect queen to maximize the insect swarm. The dimensional light moth seemed to have diarrhea and queued for nearly 8 minutes. Gao Feng, Zhong Zhe, and Lu Yifan knew that Lu Jie had produced a lot of alien insects. But he couldn't be sure how many alien insects were produced. However, both of them were very clear about the alien insects' numbers. The source sand dug one tunnel after another in the sand beneath its feet. These tunnels were basically filled with flesh-mincing blade insects. At the same time, the source sand dug out 2 spaces of 600 square meters underground. In this space, 2 groups of plasma caterpillars and lightning-gathering moths were continuously condensing powerful plasma cannons. Lin Yuan saw that Gao Feng's spirit qi was somewhat insufficient. He raised his hand and cast a spirit injection on Gao Feng. After all, Blackie's strength was at Diamond X/Fantasy V. Gao Feng's consumed spiritual power quickly recovered under Little Black's spiritual injection. On Lu Yifan's side, he did not summon his main phase, the yin-yang bull and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams deer. He only summoned the desolate bloodline Fei, the sky peach blue bird. 1 green peach tree after another grew out of the sea of sand. These peach trees had just appeared, so they were still in a bare state. However, they soon branched and grew new leaves. The new leaves went from tender to lush, and finally, green peach blossoms bloomed among the leaves. Lu Yifan did not choose to let these peach blossoms bear fruit. Instead, he chose to let these peach blossoms fall one after another. They fell on himself, Gao Feng, Black, Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, and the currently summoned Fei, the dimensional light moth. As the peach blossom petals overlapped, a green peach blossom mark appeared on everyone's body. Then, they put on a battle dress with peach trees and bluebirds. Finally, a small sky peach bluebird hovered around everyone's body. After the small sky peach bluebird appeared on everyone's body, Lu Yifan commanded the sky peach bluebird so that these green peach trees no longer fell flowers. Instead, he let the peach blossoms breed peach fruits in preparation for the battle later. Lu Jie saw that the insect swarm produced by the insect queen was almost enough. With a wave of his hand, he summoned an extremely disgusting strange alien insect that looked like a black headless earthworm. However, compared to an earthworm, this alien insect's body could extend much longer. This insect species Carcinoma Fei would leave a deep impression on anyone who participated in the Great Night Assembly. This was because this insect species Carcinoma Fei was the mycelium tapeworm that Lu Jie had summoned during the martial duel. As an insect species Carcinoma Fei, the mycelium tapeworm had an extremely strong adaptability to the environment. Although the sand was dry, it did not stop the mycelium tapeworm from covering its fungal carpet on the yellow sand. It was rumored that the insect species Carcinoma Fei, the mycelium tapeworm, had the ability to spread its fungal carpet in the magma. Lu Jie's mycelium tapeworm had reached Diamond/Legend. On the purplish-black fungal carpet that was spread, the mycelium tapeworm was rapidly dividing. Soon, the fungal carpet was covered with black mycelium tapeworms. Under Lin Yuan's command, these mycelium tapeworms were buried by the source sand. They were buried 1 meter underground. Under the ground, the mycelium tapeworm's fungal carpet was still constantly expanding. These buried mycelium tapeworms could be said to be the insect swarm's second life. When the insect swarm died in the battle, the mycelium tapeworms would parasitize the dead insects. They would control the dead insects' bodies. Then, they would enter a new round of battle. This was not the end. Lu Jie now controlled over 10 insect species Carcinoma Feis. How could he only summon one during the battle? After fusing with the source-type cocoon demon embryo, the Blade Queen Bee had become a 4-winged demon. It was at an evolutionary juncture. As long as the Blade Queen Bee could comprehend the willpower rune from heaven and earth, it would be able to become a myth breed. The Blade Queen Bee was an insect species Carcinoma Fei that was controlled by the insect queen. It was not restricted by Lu Jie's spirit chi professional rank. The dimensional light moth opened its abdomen and fired like a machine gun. It spat out a total of 80 black caterpillars with spikes all over their bodies. Under Lu Jie's command, the insect queen produced another 80 hidden armor ladybugs that contained the most abundant insect protein. As soon as these 80 hidden armor ladybugs were born, they knew their mission. It was to provide food for the blade queen bee's larvae. The hidden armor ladybugs lay in the yellow sand and opened up their carapaces, revealing the soft abdomen beneath their wings. It was convenient for these blade worms to parasitize. They would then rely on the hidden armor ladybug's nutrients to grow into their adult state. The blade queen bee's larvae had already burrowed into the hidden armor ladybug's soft abdomen and were feasting. However, the 80 hidden armor ladybugs that were still alive did not let out a single sound. Lu Jie continued to summon an insect species carcinoma Fey that Lin Yuan had never seen before. 7017K. Chapter 1737. The Starweb viewers were deeply shocked by Lu Jie's combat strength. Or rather, they were deeply shocked by the insect swarm's discipline. In fact, many of the Starweb viewers were very puzzled. How did Lu Jie return to the Radiance 100 sequence this year and ascend to the first position of the 100 sequence? Could it be because he had become Lord Nightguard's disciple? Now, all the viewers understood how terrifying Lu Jie's strength was. None of the insects that the dimensional light moths had spat out were lower than diamond. In the eyes of many spirit chi professionals who had ventured into the alien insect dimensional rifts, these insects were terrifying. Its degree of terror was already not inferior to a Class 4 alien insect dimensional rift. Even the alien insects in Class 4 alien insect dimensional rifts did not have such high quality. Lu Jie had used his strength to control the insect swarm. He had allowed the insects to cooperate and obey orders, giving rise to a magnificent feeling of greatness. Lu Jie lived up to his name and was the true heart of the insect swarm. The new insect species tumor Fey that Lu Jie had summoned was a yellowish-brown locust that looked very unremarkable. This locust was only the size of half of Lu Jie's palm. Its abdomen was bulging, and it was almost like a ball. This unremarkable locust might not be the poison dust-flying locust, but it instantly evoked a terrifying memory of Golden Edge City's residents. Back then, the insect species tumor Fey, sawtooth devour ants, had wreaked havoc outside Golden Edge City and nearly caused the residents to starve to death. The sawtooth devour ants could swallow everything in sight into their abdomens. Every time they were full, they would enter the incubation state and produce new sawtooth devourer ants. After a few hours, the newly born sawtooth devourer ants would hatch from their eggs. After hatching, they would only need one meal to enter the adult state. Back then, it was another insect species tumor Fey, the poison dust-flying locust, that had saved Golden Edge City. However, the poison dust-flying locust was not the main contributor. Wherever the poison dust-flying locust passed, there would be poisonous smoke everywhere. After being contaminated by the poisonous smoke, Golden Edge City might have been treated with spirit fluids by creation masters and could now be used to grow some cash crops. However, the production of cash crops was surprisingly low and could not even make up for the cost. This disaster caused Gold Edge City to go from being a big city with abundant resources to being able to export large amounts of cash crops every year. It became the largest city among all the cities that imported the most food and spiritual materials. It overturned the original economic structure of Gold Edge City. This caused Gold Edge City to fall from the 7th place to the 28th place. Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check the locusts in Lu Jie's hands. With a glance, he discovered that this new insect-type carcinoma Fey was called the parasitic rot-flying locust. After understanding the parasitic rot-flying locust's exclusive skill, Lin Yuan could not help but click his tongue. The poison dust-flying locust was also an insect-type tumor Fey, but in terms of toxin, it was stronger than the parasitic rot-flying locust. However, the parasitic rot-flying locust was definitely ranked first in terms of its ability to destroy the ecosystem. Lin Yuan knew why Lu Jie had summoned the rot-flying locust. Lu Jie had summoned the parasitic rot-flying locusts to destroy the surrounding environment. Since they were going to engage in positional warfare, they naturally had no requirements for the environment. If the enemy wanted to fight them, they would have to attack them from the surroundings. Thus, the enemy could rely on the environment around their position. Lu Jie's thinking was very simple. Since he couldn't use it on his side, then the other party shouldn't think about using it either. Lu Jie shouted, "Parasitic rotting locusts, fill the entire dueling ground with your descendants. Parasitize all the living plants in the dueling ground." He drank all the water. Chew through all the rocks. Following Lu Jie's command, the Diamond X/legendary rot-flying locust flew into the air. This parasitic rot-flying locust was a queen locust, so its stomach was ridiculously big. Therefore it flew very slowly. The parasitic rot-flying locust slowly flew to the edge of the yellow sand. Suddenly, he plunged into a huge ancient tree and drilled into the trunk. In less than 10 seconds, the ancient tree began to shake rapidly. Then the tree trunk was corroded with holes. A green sandstorm seemed to be spewing out from the inside of the tree, dispersing in all directions. Lin Yuan, Lu Yifan, Zhong Zhe, and Gao Feng could all see it clearly. These things that looked like a sandstorm were all locust larvae. They watched as the locusts landed on the trees beside them. They corroded these trees. After these parasitic rot-flying locusts rusted the tree trunk, they would not completely devour it. Instead, they would use the tree trunk as their nest. After occupying the tree trunk, a parasitic rot-flying locust larva would rapidly develop into a queen locust. Then, with the tree trunk as a base, they would once again produce a large number of larvae. At the same time, the green larvae that flew out would grow into adults. They would often return with large pieces of wood or grass to feed the queen locust. This would replenish the nutrients for the queen locust so that it could produce more larvae. In just 2 minutes, the entire 100,000 square kilometer area was barren. There was not a single blade of grass growing within 10,000 kilometers. Rocks were gnawed to pieces and rivers were drained. However, all the larger trees had queen locusts living in them. Because these queen locusts were too far away, they could not receive any supplies. They emitted intense insect cries and constantly urged the parasitic rot-flying locust larvae to grow. This caused the parasitic rot-flying locust larvae to enter a berserk state and become extremely aggressive. These parasitic rot-flying locust larvae surrounded the yellow sand like a no-man's land. At this moment, 80 stern roars rang out. The 80 hidden armor ladybugs that had opened their wings and exposed their soft abdomens had finally used the energy within their bodies to raise the blade worms. The blade worms had already grown into adults and burrowed out of the hidden armor ladybugs' bodies. A total of 80 worms that were nearly 8 meters long and covered in blade-like spikes appeared beside Lu Jie. These blade worms had been specially nurtured by the blade queen bee. Lu Jie had also fed them with 80 fantasy 3 hidden armor ladybugs. These blade worms had basically reached Diamond X, fantasy thrice. Only a few of them were underdeveloped and were at Diamond X/fantasy 2. These blade worms were all the blade queen bee's strongest weapons. Together with the blade worms that had grown to a certain size, they could use their strong bodies to charge at the enemy after death. When Lu Jie was fighting Long Tao, he had summoned 2 insect-type carcinoma phase. These 2 insect-type carcinoma phase were the devil flower shield bug and the floating hat bug. Since the parasitic rot-flying locust had drunk all the water, Lu Jie had no need to summon them. Thus, there was no need for Lu Jie to summon the devil flower shield bug, which relied on water to fight. However, Lu Jie still summoned the devil flower shield bug. As the only pure support in the team, Gao Feng had set his own requirements. Before the other 4 fell, Gao Feng could not be attacked. 7017K. Chapter 1738. Thus, Gao Feng didn't need any special protection. Lu Jie let the demon flower gas shield bug climb onto Lin Yuan's body. It would protect Lin Yuan. Then, Lu Jie snapped his fingers twice. The dead soul caterpillar was summoned by Lu Jie. At the same time, the dead soul caterpillar was still residing in the orchid petal blade centipede's body and burrowed into the sand like a ghost. Firstly, the dead soul caterpillar could control the orchid petal blade centipede to attack its target like an assassin. Secondly, after the orchid petal blade centipede's body was destroyed, the dead soul caterpillar could find an opportunity to parasitize and control other life forms. Just as the dead soul caterpillar appeared, another flat, crawling insect-type tumor fey that would leave black marks on the ground was summoned. Once this insect-type tumor fey appeared, Lu Jie let the 2 hurricane owlet moths bring it to the edge of the sea of sand. Lin Yuan made use of this opportunity to use Morbius True data to investigate the insect species Carcinoma fey. With a glance, Lin Yuan realized that this insect-type tumor fey was called the rotten earth ruin bug. It could turn land into wasteland, and wasteland had a powerful amplification effect on other insect-type tumor feys. The rotten earth ruin bug's corrosion was spreading at a visible speed at the edge of the sea of sand. When the parasitic rot-flying locust queen roared, all the parasitic rot-flying locust entered a berserk state. However, when the berserk adult parasitic rot-flying locust consumed the wasteland soil, the parasitic rot-flying locust would not disappear. Although the berserk state did not disappear, after being fed to the insect queen, the insect queen could quickly produce another batch of larvae. It would expand the parasitic rot-flying locust army from the inside out. Lin Yuan had heard of the insect-type tumor fey, the rotten earth ruin bug. The appearance of the rotten earth ruin bug would turn land into wasteland. It was very easy to distinguish. Furthermore, the rotten earth ruin bug would not reproduce and would only have one adult. However, the rotten earth ruin bug was ranked very high among the insect-type tumor feys. This was because once the rotten earth ruin bug came into contact with other insect-type tumor feys, the insect-type tumor feys that the rotten earth ruin bug nurtured would erupt into an uncontrollable natural disaster in a short period of time. Lu Jie summoned 7 insect-type tumor feys in a row. In an instant, it evolved into a small-scale natural disaster. Apart from Night-Leaning Moon, the Star Web's audience, the Radiance 100 sequence members, and the 12 Radiance Federation's eminences were stunned. Lian Shen and Li Yang were also stunned. Goddess Lian and Li Yang only had one thought in their minds, and that was, what was the Radiance Federation doing? Was he breeding a monster? What method did this person use to control so many insect-type carcinoma feys at once? It would have been fine if they were just bronze and gold insect species feys, but their strength had actually reached Diamond X/Legend. Fortunately, the competition venue was only 10 square kilometers. If the area of the examination was more than 100 square kilometers, he would give Night-Leaning Moon's disciple some more time to develop. In that case, they might as well not fight the team battle. Even if Luo fused with that great devil, the calamity formed by these alien insects would not be able to withstand it. Don't even think about breaking through to the central region. It could be said that this young man named Lu Jie was an invincible existence on a large-scale battlefield. Zhong Zhe had met Lu Jie during the sparring portion of the competition. He had only used 3 carcinoma feys at once. Now that he saw Lu Jie using 7 at once, he could not help but gulp down his saliva. Lu Jie, don't tell me that you still have insect-type carcinoma feys. Lu Jie replied in a very honest manner. When I introduced my strength previously, I only mentioned my insect queen. I forgot to tell you that I have a total of 17 insect-type carcinoma feys. Apart from one that is not on me, the other 3 are suitable for underwater battles. I have 13 that I can use, and there are still 6 that I have yet to summon. It is because I feel that controlling 7 carcinoma feys at once is already my limit. In my opinion, these 7 are the best way to use them. Zhong Zhe originally had an idea. He wanted to challenge Lu Jie to a duel. This idea had appeared in Zhong Zhe's mind after the Dark Night meeting had ended. However, Zhong Zhe had given up on this idea. On a 300 square meter platform, he could easily defeat Lu Jie. However, if it was a large arena, he would easily be exhausted to death by Lu Jie. Therefore, there was no meaning in a duel with Lu Jie. Zhong Zhe's strength was in his control of the arena and the environment, as well as his unparalleled offensive ability. But Lu Jie's move made Zhong Zhe feel that Lu Jie was already qualified to be the current Radiance Envoy. However, Zhong Zhe did not know. Lu Jie had already agreed with Night Leaning Moon to give up on competing for the position of the Radiance Envoy. Instead, he would become a member of the Radiance Knights after he became a Radiance Envoy. While Lu Jie was setting up the battlefield, Lin Yuan was not idling around. He did not release Red Thorn, but he released the 40 spore cavities that Red Thorn had specially nurtured. These spore cavities sprayed spores, and Red Thorn was not stingy with its eye of relinquish. On the bare ground that had been gnawed by the rot-flying locusts. Suddenly, batch after batch of gluttonous vines grew. These gluttonous vines were supplied with energy by the eye of relinquish. Even without a large number of corpses, they were still growing vigorously. In just 2 seconds, they had grown from 10 centimeters to 1 meter. In less than 40 seconds, each gluttonous vine had grown to more than 10 meters. These gluttonous vines continued to expand outwards. Following Lu Jie's order, the adult rot-flying locust began to move. They did not attack the gluttonous vines. Instead, they flew toward the gluttonous vines. With the gluttonous vines as cover, the sea of flowers and the sea of insects coexisted perfectly. The Radiance Federation had already set up their formation. However, the Freedom Federation's 5 members had a disagreement after entering the test venue. This disagreement was mainly between Yanling and Yu Changjian. Once Yanling entered the test venue, she requested Kai Hua and Yu Changjian to summon their sacred source life forms. The trio's sacred source life forms were linked. In the end, Yu Changjian rejected Yanling's suggestion. He indicated that he would only use it when he saw the enemy. This way, he could conserve spiritual power. Before the few of them could argue or even discuss which method they would use to fight against the Radiance Federation's 5 people, the Radiance Federation's people had already arrived. Suddenly, they heard a large buzzing sound coming from the forest beside them. It was as if a large number of things were flying toward them. Seeing this scene, Lu O's face revealed a smile. She said softly, "Just nice, I'm hungry." Finally, "There's food." As she spoke, 4 black horns suddenly emerged from Lu O's short white hair. 7017K. Chapter 1739. 2 of these 4 black horns extended upward, while the other 2 extended to the left and right. The 2 horns, one on the left and one on the right, had circular patterns on them. The 2 horns on the top of his head were abnormally smooth. As soon as the 4 horns appeared, a depraved, evil, and strange aura suddenly erupted with Lu O as the center. The edge of Lu O's short hair was dyed dark red. Lu O's eyes had turned black, and his pupils, which were dark gold and red, revealed a touch of ridicule. It was completely different from the feeling that Lu O gave off before. Previously, Lu O had looked like a cute white-haired Shota. But now, Lu O was like a ferocious and bloodthirsty tyrant. It was as if everything in the world was treated as food that could be eaten. Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian all looked at Lu O with fear. Especially Yanling and Yu Changjian. This was because Yanling and Yu Changjian had each contracted a demon. Yanling had contracted a middle-rank demon, while Yu Changjian had contracted a low-rank demon. Yu Changjian, who had contracted a low-rank demon, had not fallen to the ground, which was already a sign of strong willpower. After contracting a demon, the soul would fuse with the demon. Therefore, Yu Changjian, who had contracted a low-rank demon, had a sense of fear from the bottom of his heart toward the aura of a high-rank demon. Qian Yu did not expect Lu O to make the first move. But now he was already in the test venue. In the forest not far away, the sounds of a large number of insect species phase could be heard. There should not be any living beings in the duel ground. The appearance of living beings here meant that the enemy had released them. Qian Yu was not sure if these large number of insect species phase were sent by the other party to be the vanguard. Or was it a killing move from the start? Therefore, Qian Yu waved his hand, and a huge strange fish that was about 6 meters long appeared behind him. This strange fish's body was covered with a thick layer of shield skin. The huge cuticle that formed the fish's mouth opened, and a stench suddenly burst out. After the small strange fish appeared, the sound of its heartbeat was like a drum, causing the earth to tremble. If Lin Yuan saw this strange fish, he would definitely know. This strange fish had basically reached the limit of a fish phase atavism. This fish fae had the bloodline of a fish phase ancestor from hundreds of millions of years ago. It had an extremely strong suppression on other fish phase. Qianyu yelled, "Descending Cambrian." Hearing Qianyu's command, the green-skinned fish's skin suddenly turned purplish-red. A chaotic wave of water elemental energy swept out in all directions with this strange fish as the center. It was as if a sea from hundreds of millions of years ago was about to open up beneath their feet. At this moment, Qianyu met Luo's gaze. Luo's eyes, which were a mixture of scarlet and dark gold, clearly showed his dissatisfaction towards him. He even felt an unconcealable malice towards himself. Qianyu immediately thought of Luo's greater devil's uniqueness. He quickly stopped his fae and executed his exclusive skill, Cambrian Descent. If the Yi Descent of Cambrian was activated, it would instantly crush those insects. This was equivalent to ruining Luo's meal. I heard that apart from Her Highness Nana, no one could use any method to stop Luo from eating. Otherwise, he would be seen as an enemy by Luo. At this time, the swarm of rot-flying locusts had already flown over. Looking at the disgusting adult parasitic rot-flying locust, Luo's appetite did not diminish at all. Luo fiercely let out a breath, and his abdomen instantly caved in. Immediately after, Luo opened his mouth and suddenly inhaled. A black-red wind instantly appeared in front of Luo. Within this wind, there were many black-red claws. It was as if he was afraid that the parasitic rot-flying locusts would escape. He firmly controlled these parasitic rot-flying locusts within this black-red wind. As an insect-type carcinoma fae, the parasitic rot-flying locusts had an extremely strong reproductive ability. Through Lu Jie's forward-pushing breeding method, with the help of another insect-type carcinoma fae, the spoiled soil ruin insect, the number of parasitic rot-flying locusts could be counted by tens of millions. Gradually, this black-red wind was almost filled with parasitic rot-flying locusts. However, Luo was obviously not satisfied. It was as if these tens of millions of parasitic rot-flying locusts were not enough. In front of Luo's originally white fingers, there was a black nail that was nearly 10 centimeters long. This black nail was abnormally sharp. Luo's index finger pointed forward. This black wind instantly materialized into a wriggling stomach. Under the stomach, there was a meandering intestine that connected to the ground. This stomach formed by the black-red wind quickly wriggled. Millions of gold, platinum, and diamond parasitic rot-flying locusts were crushed by the stomach wall. The sound of explosions could be heard. Immediately after, Luo's face revealed a satisfied expression. However, it was obvious that this meal did not taste good. Luo could only fill her stomach, but she could not enjoy it to her heart's content. Ling recovered from her shock and subconsciously said, "It would be great. It would be great if I could be like Kai Hua, a demon without a contract." Hearing Ling's words, the corners of Yu Changjian's mouth subconsciously twitched. Ling had always been like this. She spoke without thinking. Kai Hua was the last to join the group of three. In the beginning, Yu Changjian and Ling's sacred source life forms were linked together. Kai Hua's appearance allowed the three sacred source life forms to link together to form a closed loop. Because Kai Hua was the last to join, he had not made any contributions and had not been granted the opportunity to form a demon. After all, the number of demons that the Devil Cathedral could produce was very small. Among the 400 or so favored by His Majesty, there were less than 10 in the younger generation who had the qualifications to form a contract with a demon. This was also why Han Qi had not offended Kai Hua. It was also why Kai Hua had always been targeting him. Because Kai Hua was jealous that Han Qi had a middle-rank demon while he did not. Ling's words were like a knife cutting open Kai Hua's heart. She ruthlessly humiliated Kai Hua. In the past, perhaps Yu Changjian would have specially said a few words to help. But now, Luo was eating. If they really quarreled and made a sound, It would make Lu O's meal unhappy. Yu Changjian felt that Lu O had previously said that she would eat them. Lu O would use the abilities of the three of them for a period of time. He did not think it was impossible. Kai Hua clearly understood this point. Kai Hua's expression was angry as he looked at Yan Ling with a sinister look. He realized that Yan Ling was still patting her chest with lingering fear. Kai Hua could not remember Yan Ling's careless mistake in the past month. How many times had he understood it? Lu O was eating, so even Qian Yu could not interfere. Fortunately, after eating for 10 minutes, Lu O seemed to have grown tired of eating the parasitic flying locusts. Lu O's raised finger did not lower it. The hand that had grabbed the parasitic flying locusts from his stomach held a diamond rank parasitic flying locusts and brought them in front of Lu O. 7017K. Chapter 1740. Lu O's middle finger, which had a long and slender black nail, suddenly pierced into the diamond rank rotting flying locust's head. Then, a strong ghostly aura appeared behind Lu. It was as if a creature was about to reveal its majestic appearance in the form of a monarch within the ghost chi. At this time, Qian Yu heard Lu O speaking in the cryptic ghost language. Race judgment. Then, in an instant, the sound of the rot flying locust's wings could no longer be heard. Even the parasitic rotting flying locust queen stopped breathing at this moment. Lu Jie, who was 8 kilometers away, furrowed his brows. Lu Jie took a deep breath and said to Lin Yuan, Zhong Zhe, Lu Yifan, and Gao Feng, "The parasitic rot flying locust queen is dead. The larvae, adults, and main body are all dead." Lu Jie could use the hurricane owlet moths produced by the insect queen to scout the environment. This was because the insect queen had an extremely high intelligence. Based on what the hurricane owlet moths could find, they could act as his eyes. However, even if the rotting locust queen was at Diamond/Legend, it would not be able to withstand the rotting locust queen. Its intelligence was no different from a silver fey, and there was no way to communicate with it. It could only be controlled through the insect queen. Moreover, the rotting flying locust queen could only control the larvae produced one way. There was no way to get feedback from these larvae that had grown into adults. Therefore, Lu Jie had no idea what was happening in the distance. At this moment, Lu Jie hurriedly ordered the hurricane owlet moths to expand outward and investigate. Fortunately, the death of the insect-type carcinoma phase did not affect the insect queen. When the insect queen controlled the insect-type carcinoma phase, it used a mental toxin and a certain amount of spiritual energy. Now that an insect-type carcinoma fey was dead, the insect queen could use more spiritual energy than before. Lu Jie summoned another insect-type carcinoma fey. The appearance of this insect-type carcinoma fey was very unique. Its reflective green carapace, brightly colored antennae, and flapping wings were even more gorgeous than butterflies. This insect species carcinoma fey was called the spirit-burning golden tortoise. The gas that the spirit-burning golden tortoise sprayed out from its abdomen could burn the surrounding spiritual energy and elemental energy. However, under the insect queen's control, the insect queen could now point at the spirit-burning golden tortoise. He only left behind the elemental energy he needed. Based on his previous understanding, it could be said that water, fire, and wind were the 3 types of elemental energy that drifted freely in the environment. The only thing he needed was fire. After burning the other elemental energies, the fire elemental energy would become relatively dense. Therefore, it was beneficial to Zhong Zhe's battle. Thus, Lu Jie ordered the insect-type carcinoma fey, the spirit-burning golden tortoise. He asked the spirit-burning golden tortoise to spray out gas from its abdomen to change the environment, burning the wind and water elemental energies in the air. As for earth elemental energy, it was abundant in the ground, and the spirit-burning golden tortoise had no way of burning it. Furthermore, the source sand also needed to use earth elemental energy. Lin Yuan started from when Lu Jie said that the insect-type carcinoma fey, the rotting flying locust, had been completely wiped out. He had been thinking about what kind of energy could cause such a huge impact on the entire colony of the rot flying locusts. Didn't this mean that the Freedom Federation possessed the fundamental ability to control the insect-type carcinoma phase? Just as Lin Yuan was guessing over at the Freedom Federation's side. Lu O turned around and spoke to Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian. I've already said it outside. The three of you should stop arguing. However, the three of you have only been here for 10 minutes, yet you've already forgotten about my words. If there is a next time, I will explain to His Majesty who cares for you after I eat you. When Lu O spoke, her expression was casual. However, those who knew Lu O knew that she never made empty promises. Lu O flicked his sleeve, and another Lu O suddenly appeared beside him. However, this Lu O was different from the current Lu O. This Lu O didn't activate the greater devil within his body. He was a harmless white-haired Shoda, compared to Lu O who controlled the great demon. Just like a little angel. However, compared to Lu O himself, Qianyu was looking at the other Lu O beside Lu O with more fear. Qianyu said in a deep voice. Lu O, the bloodline of the phaseless beast that Her Highness Na gave you was actually nurtured to such an extent. Originally, the Freedom Federation had heard rumors in recent years that a large number of male youths had gone missing. These male youths all had a common characteristic. They were all younger than 20 years old, and all of their birthdays were on August 27th. Lu O's birthday was also on August 27th. Before the phaseless beast could transform into a human form, it had to first taste the various forms of the human world. Those missing youths turned out to be related to Lu O. Qianyu had always felt that Lu O was a rather upright person. However, he didn't expect Lu O to also be a black-hearted fellow. It was unknown what color of heart was hidden under his harmless appearance. That's right. How could his heart be completely white if he could form a connection with the greater devil? Lu O stretched his back and said, "This team battle has no time limit." There is no time limit for this team battle. Both sides must determine a victor before it can be considered over. The Radiance Federation will naturally broadcast this duel on the Star Web. Then let's bulldoze over. Let's let the Radiance Federation know that the Freedom Federation is the strongest of the three major federations. Qianyu coughed lightly and said to Lu O, "We can bulldoze over, but the other party has already discovered our existence. It's just that the other party has already discovered our existence." There are a few white butterflies flying in the sky. Lu O seemed to have seen through Qianyu's thoughts. He raised his hand and looked at his black fingernails. My greater devil race judgment can only be used 3 times a year. I used it once before because that insect swarm was caused by an insect-type carcinoma Fey. I don't need it. With just your Fey, you won't be able to kill the Cambrian petrified fish. This insect-type carcinoma Fey is at least platinum. You still need to summon another Fey for that to be possible. Rather than letting you exhaust your spirit chi, why don't I do it? I haven't even used one of the 3 race judgments this year. Qianyu, we must win this duel. The 3 of them are not of one mind. They are too reliant on the 3 sacred source life forms' combined ability. In this world, what kind of ability can't be restrained? Qianyu heard Lu O's words and replied, "Since you say so, then I'll conserve the spiritual power in my body on the way there. I'll leave everything to you." After saying that, Qianyu looked at Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian. Even if Lu O says to bulldoze over, the 3 of you must first summon your sacred source life forms. Apart from the sacred source life forms, don't hide your main phase. To be honest, if the 3 of you can't achieve the desired effect, why don't you let Lu O eat them? I will fight alongside Lu O, and the 3 of you won't have to worry about the rear. 7017K. Chapter 1741. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian's sacred source life forms could link with each other. During the link, the 3 of them could provide a huge boost to the team. It didn't matter if it was a small team of 3 or 5 people, or a large team of 40 or 50 people. The effect of this linkage was very effective. In fact, the more people there were, the stronger the link effect of the 3 sacred source life forms would be. The 3 of them had originally thought that after the team battle, Both sides would have at least 10 people participating. In the end, after Qian Yu lost the general beheading battle on the Freedom Federation's side, he had only chosen 5 people. As a result, Kai Hua, Yan Ling, and Yu Changjian's sacred source lifeforms linkability was greatly reduced. To the 3 of them, what they were most afraid of was being targeted by the other party during the linkage period. The other party only needed to kill any one of them, and there would be a gap in their cooperation. Even if the sacred source lifeforms activated their abilities, the 3 of them were confident that they could rely on the sacred source lifeforms' linkability to protect themselves. However, the 3 of them were the younger generation of the Freedom Federation, and they were 7 or 8 years younger than Qian Yu. Qian Yu was the team leader and the Freedom Envoy of the Freedom Federation's envoys. It was truly too chilling. He made it sound as if the 3 of them were the weakest in the team. What did he mean by fighting alongside Luo? What did he mean by the 3 of them being a worry? Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian all felt that Luo might go crazy and eat them up. But how could the 3 of them just let themselves be captured? In the end, Qian Yu did not say anything to Luo. Instead, he played along with Luo's words. It was as if the 3 of them could only be used to their fullest potential if Luo ate them up. Kai Hua and Yu Changjian did not have time to say anything. Yan Ling, who had always respected Qian Yu the most, spoke up. Qian Yu, the 3 of us can summon our sacred source lifeforms. But during the battle, you and Luo have the responsibility to protect the 3 of us. Otherwise, the 3 of us will be targeted by the other party and something will happen to us. With just you and Luo, do you really think you can defeat the 5 of them? The devils on our side don't have much ability to grow. Just like Qian Yu, your devil didn't transform into a greater devil. However, compared to the devils produced by the Devil Cathedral, the Radiance Federation's Desolate Mystic Realms phase with the Desolate Bloodline have extremely strong growth potential. I don't know about others, but the current Radiance Envoy's Desolation Bloodline phase have always had the chance to reach the Great Desolate Realm. The Great Desolate Territory's Bloodline of Desolation is targeting the Great Devil. We don't have much of an advantage here. You have a trump card, but do you think the other side doesn't have a trump card? When Qian Yu heard Yan Ling's words, his eyes narrowed. He knew that Yan Ling said this to emphasize the importance of the 3 of them in the team. Without the 3 of them, they would really clash with the Radiance Federation. He and Luo might not be able to win. These words made a lot of sense. However, Qian Yu was rather surprised. He didn't expect such dejected words to come out from the mouth of Yan Ling, who had always been arrogant but had little ability. It seemed like Yan Ling was afraid. Kai Hua's and Yu Changjian's faces were pale. She looked at Luo and Qian Yu with fear. However, she still followed their instructions and summoned the sacred source lifeform. At that moment, dense spider shadows suddenly appeared beside Kai Hua. These spider shadows were made of small spiders with black legs and black-red carapace. Their round, bulging abdomens were as red as blood. Finally, these spider shadows gathered together to form a human-faced arachnid. The upper body of this arachnid was that of an abnormally beautiful middle-aged woman. However, her long and narrow eyes and 2 sharp teeth protruding from her thin lips made this arachnid look extremely sinister. The arachnid spread out her hands, which were like brackets. Between her hands were dense spider webs. The spider webs were filled with tiny spider shadows that constantly crawled. Beside Yu Changjian, a thick and sturdy wild boar appeared. The wild boar had huge golden fangs. On the back of this huge wild boar was a pair of golden wings. Its left front hoof was covered with a thick layer of iron armor. On the iron armor, there were fine carvings. These carvings were like hieroglyphics. It was as if there were many wild boars with huge fangs being tortured in various ways. Finally, the huge wild boar's legs shook the ground. The wild boar's head shrank into its abdomen. Finally, an extremely strong middle-aged woman emerged from its back. Slender wild boar fangs grew from the woman's mouth, and a pair of golden wings sprouted from her back. Her left hand was made of iron. The carvings on the iron hand emitted mournful wails. Yan Ling did not want to summon the sacred source lifeform now. The white moths in the sky were obviously the enemy's spies. Before the enemy's spies were eliminated, the three of them had to summon their sacred source life forms and activate their abilities. Even if the enemy did not know what the ability was, it would be difficult for them not to think about it. However, the situation was beyond their control. Luo and Qianyu did not take the three of them seriously. Kai Hua and Yu Changjian were the first to summon their sacred source life forms. Yanling had no choice but to summon her own sacred source life form as well. Kai Hua's and Yu Changjian's sacred source life forms were ugly. Yanling's sacred source life form was much nicer in appearance. A huge clamshell appeared under Yanling's feet. Once the clamshell appeared, the area within a radius of 50 meters immediately turned into a body of water. The shell opened, revealing a young girl with a fish's body and a human face. The girl's skin was an icy blue color. It was similar to the sirens from the Lantis mystic realm of the Azure Federation. However, it did not have the sharp ears of the sirens. It also did not have the gorgeous fishtails of the sirens. The female demon made some space for Yanling inside the clamshell so that she could sit inside. Then, she took out a huge folding fan from the coral shelf behind her. The folding fan was covered with densely packed dark blue seaweed that looked like hair. Every time the female demon fanned the fan, several streams of water would fly out from the clamshell. They circled around the huge clamshell. Luo looked at Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian, who had summoned their sacred source life forms. These three sacred source life forms all have the scent of Gorgon's bloodline. No wonder they can work together. The Freedom Federation had set foot in the swamp world more than a decade earlier than the Radiance Federation's exploration of the Abyss world. The exploration of dimensional worlds was not something that the Radiance Federation could compare to at the moment. In the beginning, the Freedom Federation's majesties had treated the swamp world as a huge treasure vault. They had explored the swamp world a lot and had basically emptied an area of resources in the swamp world. The factions in the swamp world were established according to each resource point. Therefore, the Freedom Federation had inevitably interacted with the apostles in the swamp world. The Freedom Federation's majesties had even met the ruler of the swamp world face to face. They had seen through the secret of the spirit transformation realm ruler. It turned out that dimensional life forms could choose when they reached the spirit transformation realm ruler level. 7017K, you're tuning into the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.